On Tuesday, we have a new moon solar eclipse. It is going to be a wild ride. This is an action-packed astrological event. So much stuff happening over the next 2 weeks. Thank you for being here. I'm Erin, I'm Queen Bee Tarot. Welcome back to my channel. I've got detailed horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs, but I'm going to start with a general overview so that you can understand the quality of time, all of these moving parts that are coming together. But the beautiful thing is that finally it feels like everything is kind of clicking into place. I'm going to tell you why. You know, we had a full moon lunar eclipse just about a week and a half ago. And full moon lunar eclipses have a way of really kind of stirring up the dust. And it often takes a little bit of time before everything settles and we can kind of figure out where we stand and figure out what our next best steps are. So the astrological combination of influences that happened at the full moon lunar eclipse just a week and a half ago was a time of definitely like upheaval, chaos, but also really intense feelings. And a focus on all of the little minute details, because it did happen in the zodiac sign of Virgo, which is all about details, attention to any cracks in the facade, any places or situations or people in which we just felt things weren't exactly in alignment. And that full moon energy, because every full moon has a really like peak of energy, it has a way of catalyzing breakthroughs, breakups, breakdowns, because everything kind of comes to a head, and often the end result is some sort of explosion or implosion, depending on how we are affected. And those are really, really difficult influences because, like I said, it's just kind of feeling like the dust is getting kicked up and we don't necessarily know what's going to come out of it. Right here, right now, we have some really beautiful influences because Mercury, the planet of thinking, communicating, and brainstorming, has finally moved into balanced Libra. Now, Libra is the only sign in the zodiac represented by an object. Not a person, not an animal, but just an object, which is the scales. And I'm sure you've heard the concept of subjective versus objective thinking. Subjective thinking is saying, I this, I that. Objective thinking is going, oh, would you look at that? And when Mercury is in the sign of Libra, it gives us that breathing room. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by everything that we're experiencing, we're kind of able to get a little bit of a distance and go, oh, would you look at that? Now I get it. And because Libra is represented by the scales, that means that we have this beautiful, peaceful influence of finally feeling like we can weigh things out, we can see both sides of a situation, and we can make some sort of honorable or integral decision about what to do. Libra is associated, libraries, right? That's one of the words that are connected because it's a Latin word, and it is associated with learning, it's associated with rules, law, but really the common thread is being fully informed. When we are going through any kind of big turmoil or upheaval in our lives, the emotions usually become so overwhelming that it's very hard to understand where do we stand, right? And Mercury being in Libra adds an influence of finally feeling like we can be fully informed about all of the options or all of the combined factors that led to where we are right now. Adding to this Libra influence, we do have kind of a planetary party happening in Libra because the sun moved into Libra on September 22nd. That did mark the beginning of the fall equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. And so it's funny, equinox is Latin for equal night. This combined collective energy right now that is thankfully influencing us on a personal level is all about things coming into balance, things becoming equal, or at least things becoming understandable and tangible instead of so freaking overwhelming, right? So yeah, Tuesday is the new moon solar eclipse. Depending on where you are in the world, you may or may not be able to see it, but it is only a partial eclipse. But it is one of the ones that is finishing up all of the eclipses that have been happening over the last year and a half on the Aries Libra axis. I want to point something out. You know, the full moon lunar eclipse that we had a week and a half ago was in Virgo, and it was the first eclipse on the Virgo Pisces axis. But the nodes representing where exact eclipses would be, they haven't moved out of Aries and Libra yet. So we've got this kind of crossover. Now the eclipse that we had, I believe it was September 16th. Yes. The eclipse that we had September 16th, whatever was happening for you around that time, you're going to see parallels right around March 13th of next year. And alternatively, the new moon solar eclipse that we're having on Tuesday, October 2nd, is going to have parallels to March 29th of next year. And this kind of completes that crossover process. The Aries Libra axis finishes March 29th, and then we move fully into the Virgo Pisces axis. So there's this little bit of a crossover, and the themes here are health, wellness, awareness, like being fully present as opposed to avoidant or disassociating. And the other highlighted influences here, or themes happening here, are me versus we. How can I take action to achieve equilibrium? And so with kind of these themes coming together, like I said, it's been feeling for quite some time, like the dust is just getting kicked up in the air. But there's a blessing associated with this new moon solar eclipse happening on Tuesday. And that is the ability to achieve, or at least be clear about, where that equilibrium lies and what appropriate steps will help us either achieve it or reach it. So this is definitely an empowering event. Whereas some eclipses feel really disruptive, this one's actually going to be profoundly rebalancing. So basically what I wanted to talk about also is it's not just the new moon solar eclipse. There are multiple planets involved. The eclipse is always a starting point as far as the major themes and energies that are going to be involved. And the new moon means that the sun and the moon are going to be in the exact same spot in Libra. Adding to that influence is Mercury, which hits an exact alignment with the sun just a couple of days prior, and Black Moon Lilith. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of Black Moon Lilith. I'm actually going to point it out on this chart for the eclipse right here. Looks like a little moon on top of a little T. Now, Black Moon Lilith is not a planet. What it is that the moon goes in an orbit around the Earth, but it is not a perfect circle. It's more like an oval. And this elliptical orbit, that means oval shaped, means that sometimes the moon is really close to the Earth, like when it's going around these parts. But when the moon is in the outer parts of the orbit, it's more far away from the Earth. Now, those points, it's like a theoretical or mathematically calculated point. Those points that are furthest away from the Earth is the Black Moon Lilith point. And what it means is it's kind of like the dark side of the moon. It represents that which is hidden, mysterious, and yet to be discovered. Now, if you don't know already, Lilith is actually a reference to a character from the Bible. And whether or not you believe the Bible literally, it's a really interesting place where we can tap into fables, moralistic stories, and things like that, traditional stories that have been held by humanity for a very long time. Basically, the idea is that Lilith was the first wife of Adam. You know, in the original part of the Bible, no matter whether or not you're religious, you likely know about Adam and Eve, right? I bet you didn't know that Eve was the second wife of Adam. And I know for those of you who are a little bit more informed about Bible stories, there's always the story about how Eve was created from Adam's rib. Well, obviously these are fables, not true science, right? But the original wife, Lilith, was created by God as an equal. She was not made from a part of Adam. Lilith and Adam were created at the same time as unique sovereign individuals. However, Lilith was like, awesome, glad to be alive. I'm paraphrasing here, of course. And she went off and did her thing. And Adam complained to God. She doesn't want to be my obedient wife. She won't come back and spend time with me. Make her come back and be my obedient wife. So in the story, God goes to Lilith and says, get back over here and be Adam's obedient wife. And she's like, no. And so apparently, according to legend, God delivered an ultimatum to Lilith and said, seriously, get back over here and be Adam's obedient wife, or you're going to be banished to the spirit realm. And Lilith thought about it for a hot minute and he went, yeah, no thanks. And of course, she was banished out of Eden. So throughout the Old Testament or the Torah, depending on what you're reading, depending on what religious association you're looking at, throughout the early books of the Bible, Lilith is portrayed as a demon, a temptress, a woman of the night. And basically, she was vilified for not being an obedient woman. Right? Anyway, I find it profoundly hilarious and also inspirational. I think she's awesome. She's a badass, right? So Black Moon Lilith in astrology is all about where and when we are fiercely independent. And when Black Moon Lilith is activated with astrological transits, either in what's happening with current events or in your own personal birth chart, Black Moon Lilith's placement represents not only where you are fiercely independent, but also it represents a part of our lives or ourselves in which maybe it feels like something's missing. Maybe there's this kind of, basically we desire autonomy, we desire freedom, sovereignty. And that means the ability to think and act independently without being told that we have to be obedient to someone else. And this goes whether or not you identify as male, female, or otherwise. It really doesn't matter. It's not heteronormative. It is a concept that is all about feeling as though you are able to be your authentic self without somebody telling you that you can't be or that you need to be somebody else. And so what's really, really interesting, thanks for bearing with me through this story, what's really, really interesting is that this new moon solar eclipse on Tuesday, October 2nd, is the moon and the sun together, but also Mercury and Black Moon Lilith, all in the exact same spot. And so that means that the theme of this new moon solar eclipse is giving ourselves an opportunity to start fresh. That's a new moon on any level, starting fresh from a place of authenticity, fierce rebellion or freedom, and rediscovering any parts of ourselves that maybe have been hidden, subdued, or lost, depending on life circumstances. And this applies very specifically within the concept of relationships, because all of this is happening in the sign of Libra. As I mentioned, it is represented by the scales. And in astrology, Libra is associated with the 7th house of astrology. It is one-on-one relationships. And it's not just romantic ones. It could be the one-on-one connection you have with a bestie, a roommate, a sibling, co-worker, business partner, something like that. But basically it's not large crowds, it's just one-on-one connection, right? So it could take any form. And so within the context of one-on-one connections in our lives, everybody can reflect and everybody can attest that you will not typically, it's very rare in life that you are able to be fully your sparkly self, because in the context of most one-on-one relationships, there are social norms, there are acceptable or unacceptable aspects of behavior and expression. For example, if you're at work, obviously you can't be your sparkly, jazzy self all the time because you have to be business professional, right? But where it gets extra sticky and extra complicated is if it is a romantic partner or even a bestie, in which maybe you feel as though parts of yourself are not welcome. Those are the situations and the relationships that are going to become crystal clear over the next few days, if they haven't already. It is those relationships that would have had some dust stirred up at the full moon lunar eclipse we had a week and a half ago, maybe leading to chaos, maybe leading to disruption, but also arguments, conflicts, contradictions. And basically when the dust gets kicked up, it makes us realize, you know what, something's just not right here. And as we dig for clarity, as we seek the truth, as we seek awareness and connection, that is when we find out either this is going to work and there's room to grow, or that's when we find out this is not working and this has to go. What's really interesting about this new moon solar eclipse happening on Tuesday is that it is aligned with the South Node. The South Node is a mathematically calculated point opposite the North Node. The South Node represents what we need to karmically release and let go of. The North Node, which is in Aries right now, is where we are karmically destined and invited to grow, to stretch outside of our comfort zones, and to try and embrace some new skills, awareness, or ideals. So because this new moon solar eclipse is happening aligned with the South Node, all of us collectively and personally are going to be coming to a few very clear realizations. Number one, relationships are obviously part of human social interactions, but relationships do not have to feel stifling, unequal, or prohibitive. Number two, we're going to be realizing where and when we have space and freedom to be our authentic selves, and where and when we feel as though maybe parts of us are not welcome or not approved. And number three, we're going to be given the opportunity to figure out what the heck to do about any of these realizations that come through for us. So like I said, it is going to be a blessing. Sometimes blessings come in disguise. Sometimes blessings come disguised as curses. Sometimes what happens is we're working so hard to maintain and uphold some sort of a connection, personal or professional. And after months, weeks, years of effort, we realize this is just not sustainable. And even when sometimes it feels really, really hard to let go of those things, it is by letting go that we realize, wow, I was not able to be my complete authentic self. And by letting go, I am giving myself the opportunity to be free, fiercely independent, ferociously alive, right? So I encourage every single one of you to channel your inner Lilith. Obviously, there are going to be situations like at work or something like that where we don't really want to rock the boat, but in the context of any of your personal connections, friendships, besties, lovers, whatever, if you are not free to be your authentic self, this is the time in which it is going to become 100% clear and 100% unbearable. So giving yourself the gift of freedom, giving yourself the gift of release is definitely what we are all being encouraged to do right now. Now, if you are a Libra, a Cancer, a Scorpio, a Gemini, or a Pisces, you guys are going to be the most affected by the astrology over the next 2 weeks. There's quite a few little repeating themes happening here right now, involving Mars, Mercury, Saturn, and Jupiter. And so basically what's happening is there is this dynamic of where and when am I free to be myself? Where and when am I afraid to be myself because somebody is going to have a problem with it? And those are the situations that do become intolerable. Now, like I said, Tuesday's the eclipse, but before that happens, today is Sunday, September 29th. The moon moves from Leo to Virgo first thing in the morning. And on Monday, Mars forms a very supportive trine to Saturn. Now, Venus is in Scorpio, Mars is in Cancer, Saturn is in Pisces. Those are the three water signs. And this week, those three planets in the three water signs will reach an exact trine. And when we have three major planets forming a trine, that's kind of like a triangle, it is called a grand trine because all three corners have been achieved with exact alignment. Now, Venus is love, comfort, trust, and our desire to make connections. Mars is how we channel our sun sign energy. It is how we express our egos. It is how we go about achieving goals or overcoming any obstacles. Mars is kind of like full steam ahead. And then Saturn in Pisces is all about what sort of precedent has been set. And Saturn is often a stick in the mud because Saturn is a very heavy, dense planet that is kind of like, well, this is how things always have been. Saturn is very, very resistant to change, but it also happens to be at the very last degrees of Pisces. And when it leaves Pisces early next year, it is going to move into Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. So what we have here is this perfect trifecta of these three very important planets urging us to pay attention to what has reached its natural end or conclusion. And anyone will tell you, you know, outstaying your welcome or overstaying a situation that has long since lost its spark. Those are the moments where we feel like, something's not right. I'm not fulfilled. This just isn't doing it for me. But it's also very hard to walk away or achieve closure if we don't have like necessarily one particular thing to be like, oh, that's it. That's where I sign out, or that's where I quit. Sometimes it's just this general sense of dissatisfaction. And if that's the case for you, sometimes just simply acknowledging that you're dissatisfied, just simply acknowledging that you're only surviving, you're not thriving, that can be enough. You don't necessarily have to have like a straw that broke the camel's back moment, even though those things do bring absolute clarity. Sometimes we have to just give ourselves the clarity and say, it's okay to ask for more. It's okay to say, meh, this isn't doing it for me. I'm ready to move on. That is just as valid of evidence as big moments, right? So when Mars forms a trine to Saturn on Monday, almost at the exact same time, the Sun and Mercury form a Cazimi in Libra. Cazimi is an Arabic word because honestly, a lot of astrology and astrological practices has their roots in the Arabic Peninsula from early times. And so some of these terms, some of these ways that we in modern times look at the movements of the planets, they have roots in Arabic astrology. So a Cazimi means in the heart of the sun or in the flame. And the reason for that is because the sun's huge and Mercury is this tiny little dot from our perspective here on Earth. When Mercury passes in front of the sun, it appears to be swallowed by the sun. And when we have a Sun Mercury Cazimi, what that means is that they are in the exact same spot, and the light of the sun has kind of overwhelmed the energy of Mercury. What that means for a personal level is that when Mercury is in Libra, we are much more tactful with our conversations. We are much more balanced and fair. We are aligned with the highest of ideals, or at least we try. And sometimes being balanced, being fair, being patient, being receptive, sometimes that doesn't lead us to the natural conclusions that we really need. If we are too patient, we never set a boundary, right? If we are too understanding of what other people are going through, we're not necessarily giving ourselves the validation that we need. So what's really interesting is that Mercury in Libra, balanced and fair and equanimous, is going to be kind of swallowed up by the sun being in Libra. So it brings this energy of, yes, your feelings matter. Yes, I want to be kind. I want to be considerate, yada, yada. But my feelings also matter. And sometimes a line has to be drawn. Sometimes we have to throw indecision out the window and go, you know what? I'm going to pick something. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to validate myself, and I am ready to move forwards. So the Mercury Sun Cazimi happening Monday is a moment of aha. It's going to be clarity on or around Monday. You're going to have an opportunity to see things clearly, to, instead of being stuck with indecision, get a little bit of solid understanding as far as where you are at and what your personal needs are. And again, the common thread here is going to be, am I free to be my authentic self? Am I able to say what I think? Am I able to share my feelings? Am I able to move freely, pursue my goals and dreams? Or am I held back, inhibited, or told what to do by somebody else? And these are the realizations that are going to lead us to Tuesday's new moon solar eclipse that allows us all personally and collectively an opportunity to hit reset on all of these topics and themes and problems. So within the context of relationships, if you are free, you are going to find this to be very affirming. You're going to feel very confident. You're going to feel as though that freedom is being reinforced, and all that you value is going to be highlighted. Alternatively, if you have personal or professional relationships in which you do not feel free, that is going to be highlighted and brought to your attention in a way that you cannot really ignore anymore. Of course, we all have free will, so no matter what it is that you are shown, no matter what it is that you realize or come to understand, you have free will when it comes to what you choose to do about it. So yeah, the issue here is that, especially so, oh gosh, I said the eclipse is on Tuesday. I'm just looking at my calendar. See, I should have had my glasses on. The eclipse is on Wednesday. My apologies. So Tuesday, the moon moves into Libra, and then Wednesday afternoon is going to be the eclipse. It's going to be 2:49 p.m. Eastern. That works out to 11:49 a.m. Pacific. And basically this combination of the moon, sun, and Mercury and Lilith is going to be really powerful, but I want to just really make it clear, is going to be liberating. It's going to be so liberating, and it's an opportunity to let go of previous karma. It's an opportunity to release yourself from any repeating patterns or unhealthy habits that you find yourself stuck in. And again, the context is one-on-one relationships. Then on Thursday, the moon forms a challenging square to Mars. The moon is going to be in Libra, Mars is in Cancer. Mars in Cancer means that the action that we are taking collectively right now is coming from a place of really deep emotions. And the moon, which is about emotions, being in Libra, is kind of like, okay, I can see both sides of the situation, but Mars says my feelings matter too. If my feelings are being trampled on, if my feelings are being stifled, if my feelings are being completely disregarded, then I am going to switch into self-preservation mode and make some changes happen, right? So that's the thing. Don't hold back. If you feel invalidated, if you feel oppressed, most of all, if you feel oppressed in any way, now is the time to formulate a plan of action. And I do want to mention, you know, with Mercury in Libra, highlighting tact, highlighting politeness, highlighting protocol. You may not really feel like you want to make a major announcement about the decisions that you're making. You might want to be polite in this situation, and then in your own time and in your own space go, okay, how can I get out of this? How can I do something different? How can I create an exit door for myself? So this is not going to be like a grandstanding. It is not conducive to arguments unless it's been a long time coming. But really, for the most part, this is about finding a peaceful exit. This is about saying, thank you very much, but I'm out of here now, and making your way to the door. It is all about self-preservation, but from a really clear place. And you know, clarity has been really hard to come by lately. So that's why I said this is going to be a huge blessing. Friday, October 4th, the moon moves into Scorpio. Going to be a little bit spicy. Mercury reaches a really challenging relationship with Saturn, which is basically coming to the realization by the end of the week that even if this is how things have always been, I don't want to continue perpetuating this pattern. I don't want to continue feeding into this precedent or this status quo. I really do not give a flying F if this is how things have always been. Not anymore. Not on my watch, right? So that's the kind of like fiercely rebellious vibe that's going to come through. Please allow it to liberate you in the most beautiful, peaceful way possible. But don't compromise your boundaries. There's going to be a temptation to put your needs last. Don't do that. There's going to be a temptation to talk yourself out of your feelings. Don't do that. There's going to be a temptation to put other people first and put yourself last. Please, please, please do not do that. Because all of this energy is all about recognizing what has reached its end and gracefully letting it go. And that's kind of the theme of fall, autumn, is noticing how even the earth knows how to gracefully let things go. And we too can take that example and liberate ourselves. Again, it's all about repeating karma, repeating patterns, feeling stuck and feeling oppressed. And on that same day, on Friday, Venus forms that trine to Saturn. So that grand trine between Venus, Mars, and Saturn in water signs does come to a completion on Friday, October 4th. Then over the weekend, we have a bit of challenges, and it's kind of like, okay, now that I decided I want to make these changes, the aftermath is sometimes really, really sticky. And that's what we see over the weekend, October 5th and 6th, because on the 6th, Mercury forms a square that's a 90-degree angle. It's very challenging, but it's like a mountain that needs to be climbed. It's that realization of like, okay, if not now, when, right? I might as well get this over with. I might as well just put one foot in front of the other, rip off the Band-Aid, whatever the case may be. And when Mercury, which is in Libra, forms a square to Mars in Cancer, that is going to be the heart arguing with the head. That is going to be that peak of trying to talk ourselves out of emotions, but those emotions just keep coming up. They're not going away. So if any kind of emotion, any kind of feeling, any kind of frustration has been chasing you for weeks or months or years, now is the time to deal with it. There is no better time. Now is the time. Rip off the Band-Aid. And then after the weekend finishes, we move into the second week of these horoscopes. Venus forms a trine to Mars. Oh, that's the completion of the grand trine. And then Mercury forms a trine to Jupiter. So what's really cool is that after the weekend on Tuesday, October 8th, Mercury, the planet of thinking and communication, but also brainstorming, forms a supportive angle to Jupiter, the planet of freedom, the planet of new beginnings, the planet of F this, I'm out of here. So even if something comes to an emotional head over the weekend, starting Monday, starting Tuesday, there's this energy of come hell or high water, I am looking after myself. I am going to figure this out. I am going to make sure that my needs get met. I'm going to make sure that I end up in a healthy situation in which I am thriving, not just surviving. So it's all about taking appropriate action. It's all about, oh yeah, that was the other thing. When Mercury forms a trine to Jupiter, yes, and that is October 8th. I want to mark that down. When Mercury forms that supportive trine to Jupiter, Mercury is also going to be forming in opposition to Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. It represents kind of our greatest pain, either in this lifetime or a repeating pattern that's happening for you currently. And so basically, Tuesday, October 8th is a beautiful opportunity to say never again. I'm not going back. I'm not going to keep repeating this pattern. I have learned the lesson from the wounds that I have experienced, and now I'm going to walk a path of healing so that I can really embrace a much higher quality of life for myself, either personally or professionally. So as much as some of these things may feel sticky, it might feel overwhelming, especially if there's an aspect of repetition or this keeps happening in my life, as much as we can to make a different decision, to approach these repeating patterns with a different energy or a different desire or a different, you know what I mean? If we can approach things differently, we can unlock. And so that's the whole thing, to release the sense of being bound by some sort of wound that keeps being re-triggered and reopened. This is an opportunity, like I said, to say never again. I'm not going back. And then two really interesting things happen. Wednesday, October 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde. So Jupiter, the planet of freedom, expansion, trying new things, when it goes retrograde, what it means is seeking freedom is going to be best utilized and catalyzed from inside of here. So Jupiter is going to be retrograde from October 9th to February 4th of next year. It gives us plenty of time, about 5 months, to unlock anything that's stuck within our hearts or within our heads, so that when the exit door becomes apparent and obvious in our physical surroundings, our bags are packed and we're ready to go. Jupiter going retrograde is going to feel as though maybe that exit door isn't immediately apparent in our environment. However, the freedom, the unlocking, the realizations, and the rebellion, full on within your psyche, within your awareness. And Jupiter retrograde also encourages us to rethink any belief systems. So for example, and again, just tying back into that biblical piece, if you were raised to think, if you are a female, for example, if you were raised to think that you're supposed to be somebody's obedient wife, then your path of freedom would be, wait a minute, I don't believe that. That's not leading to a high quality of life. That's BS, right? So unlocking those belief systems that kept you stuck in that pattern is always going to be the first part. And then actualizing the steps to find your exit door, that's part 2. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting combination. And then remember how I said 2 important things happen? On Friday, October 11th, Pluto goes direct. What's really cool about Pluto going direct, it really wasn't in Capricorn for very long. It did tiptoe back into Capricorn for the last time for 250 years. It's not going to be in Capricorn again for a very long time. And so October 11th, it goes direct. November 19th, it moves into Aquarius for good. And Saturday, October 12th, Mercury forms a challenging angle with Neptune. That's where external information might prove to be quite confusing. You might want to spend more time by yourself figuring out what your ideals are, what your beliefs, what your feelings are, rather than being clouded or confused by other people's perspectives. All right. Yeah, don't be afraid to break the rules. This is a time of refresh, renew, and release. It's all about self-preservation, and it's all about being able to freely live a life that is yours, a life of authenticity, and a life of passionate alignment with your ideals and your pure spirit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the detailed horoscopes for all 12 zodiac signs. I will be starting with Aries. These are written for rising signs and sun signs. So if you know your rising sign, definitely start with that one. And then I would encourage you to also watch the one for your sun sign. If you don't know your rising sign, that's totally fine. You can watch the horoscope for your sun sign and you're going to get lots of good stuff out of it. Awesome. All right, I'm back. So Aries sun and Aries rising, we're going to start with you guys. The first sign of the zodiac, and what we're looking at right now, obviously the highlight of the horoscopes over the next 2 weeks is the new moon solar eclipse happening on Wednesday, October 2nd. But the other things that happen is Jupiter goes retrograde and Pluto goes direct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie it all together, and it's all about liberating yourself from any situations in your life that are holding you back from thriving or being your authentic sparkly self. So basically one of the biggest dominant energies happening right now, and where's my chart? Oh, it's kind of messy. I don't know if you can see. There's a grand trine, this big blue triangle here between Mars in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces, and Venus in Scorpio. Now, what's really cool about this is it gives us the opportunity to kind of hit reset on a lot of different aspects of our lives, how we interact with other people, how we pursue our goals, our dreams, and our ideals, and potentially breaking away from any precedent that has been set or any patterns that we found ourselves repeating but not really understanding why. It is no longer going to be palatable for any of us to continue acting in a way that is unconscious. We're going to really want to feel like the action that we're taking, the moves that we're making, the decisions that we're making have meaning and power and strength behind them. So no more kind of just going through the motions, not really understanding why. We are all going to be encouraged to really understand more about ourselves, more about what we need to feel good about what we're doing, and more about the connections that we have in our lives. Our eyes are going to be open to whether or not the relationships in our lives, personal or professional connections, are either helping us live our best lives or maybe kind of holding us back. And, you know, those situations are always going to be a little bit different because, like, for example, an employer that loves that you're working is not necessarily going to want you to get better and move on, because then they lose an employee. So a lot of the times, if we pay too much attention to what other people think, we can hold ourselves back because we are not giving ourselves the highest priority as far as perspective and opinion. That is a risk right now with Mercury and the Sun being in Libra, that there's this beautiful, balanced, harmonious influence, but we might be reluctant to step into self-preservation because maybe we're worried about what other people will think, or maybe we're worried about overstepping our bounds or something like that, right? So the grand trine happening for your sign is going to be activating the 4th, 8th, and 12th houses. And I'll summarize for you. The 4th house, where Mars is for you right now, is all about your foundation from which you grow. It is your home life. It is your family roots. It's where you go to kind of recharge away from the craziness of the world. Now, with Mars in your 4th house, you might be having a lot of activity around the home. You might be moving. You might be wanting to kind of rearrange things and kind of spice some things up. But Mars represents action. And the 4th house is your roots, your family home, but also your heart, your emotional center. And with Saturn in the 12th house, there's kind of this vague sense that things have always been this way. You may feel as though there's some sort of invisible glass ceiling holding you down. You may not really know what you're up against. You may have this kind of vague sense that you're just dissatisfied, right? And so you're starting where you can. You're starting to kind of, okay, maybe I'll rearrange furniture, maybe I'll redecorate. But what happens is you're going to exhaust all of these things available to you at your fingertips and go, what else can I do? That's when Venus in your 8th house jumps in. Now, Venus in your 8th house is attracting money, attracting resources, but also attracting fresh energy. Because the 8th house is all about life, death, rebirth, but also karma, karmic patterns. Also debt is kind of the invisible aspect of money, but it's also about tapping into the spirit realm, whether you are calling on your guides and angels for assistance, or whether you're kind of starting to realize that maybe there's more to your life, to your energy, than meets the eye. So this is where that feeling of kind of feeling dissatisfied and not really knowing necessarily what to do about it is going to start really kind of clicking into alignment and helping you see beyond your immediate reality. It is very easy for us humans to get stuck in, well, this is what I have in front of me and I don't really know what else to do. So this is going to be a blessing in that you're going to be able to imagine possibilities and imagine how things could be, and then set your sights on those goals and targets. Now, the Cazimi, which is a Sun-Mercury conjunction in the same spot, and the new moon solar eclipse happening on October 2nd, that's Wednesday, is going to be activating your 7th house. So that is one-on-one relationships. That is your close partnerships, personal and professional. And so it's going to be this time of realizing either people have your back and they are supporting your growth, or people are stifling and inhibiting your growth, because if you excel, if you move on, they're going to lose out. They get some sort of benefit out of it. So through the connections and conversations that you have, over the next week or so, people are either going to encourage you to thrive, or they're going to be like, I don't know if you should do that. Blah, 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 blah. So instead of really latching into what they think or what they feel, just observe for a second, a very core, simplistic level. Is this person encouraging me to live my best life? Or is this person trying to hold me back from making any necessary changes? Second part of that question is, what do they have to gain out of telling me this, right? Especially in the context of employers, coworkers, yada, yada, people will often hold you back because they get something out of you staying where you are. So any changes that you want to make, a really important question is, in whose name do I make these changes? Am I doing this to better my life, to better my possibilities and my opportunities? Or am I doing this to make somebody else happy? Really, really, really important to differentiate the two. And then as we move on into the second week of October, what we're looking at is that Mercury forms a really challenging square to Mars. So that means that there's going to be some aspect of your headspace, your thoughts, or your communication with other people that's going to kind of put the kibosh on your desire to make changes or move forwards. So any speed bumps that you hit, any obstacles, any roadblocks that you hit, again, try not to get too obsessed with that roadblock or that obstacle. Take a step back and go, okay, who has something to gain from this, right? How can I find a way to gain out of this situation? Don't latch on too much to what other people think or feel, unless, of course, that person is a huge priority for you. But any opinions or perspectives that you gather from other people, please make sure to balance it with your own righteous opinion. Don't prioritize other people's thoughts and feelings over your own right now. That would be taking a step backwards. And then what happens is Mercury forms a supportive angle to Jupiter. So by October 8th, that's when the exit door is going to start to appear. That's when you're going to gain a huge amount of clarity when it comes to how to feel more free, how to feel more authentically yourself, and what sort of steps you can take to actualize that sort of existence in your life. One of the biggest things is if you have been held back in the past, if you've been bullied, if you've been abused, if you've been told you're not good enough, one of the biggest things holding you back throughout this experience is going to be struggling with self-worth. So if that ends up becoming really apparent this week, please consider that that is a wound that needs to be healed, not a direction to return in. You are infinitely capable. And anyone who tells you otherwise is holding you back and not helping you grow and heal and learn and expand, right? So if anyone or anything triggers those wounds and tries to push you backwards, rebel. Fierce rebellion is definitely the theme. Lilith, Black Moon Lilith is being activated right now, encouraging us all to be fiercely authentic. And when Jupiter goes retrograde, in your third house, again, that's when it's just going to be so crazy clear where anybody in your inner circle, personal or professional, is going to become really, really clear who is supporting your path to living your best life and who is potentially sabotaging those efforts. And when Pluto goes direct on, October 11th, I should write that down. When Pluto goes direct October 11th, it is going to be activating your 10th house of career, long-term goals, and your desire to live your best life. So by October 11th, hopefully the path will be a lot more clear for you as far as how to live your best life, how to just ignore any haters, and really kind of break free of any chains or karmic bonds that have been holding you back. So good luck out there, you guys. I hope you have an amazing eclipse. It really is a blessing. And even if that blessing comes in sideways, keep your eyes and your heart open and think, how can I be more free? How can I be more me? Unapologetically me, right? Take care. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you liked your horoscopes. Feel free to like and comment below if any of this resonates with you. If you feel like sharing your personal story, you are always welcome to. And I will see you next time. Mwah! Bye. Oh, I forgot to set the timer. Okay. Taurus Sun and Taurus Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We are looking at a new moon solar eclipse. We are looking at a Cazimi with Black Moon Lilith. We are looking at Jupiter retrograde, Pluto direct. Ooh, lots of big changes in the air, but this is a beautiful magical influence full of profound potential because any new moon ever offers us a new beginning, but a new moon solar eclipse amplifies that magical potential tenfold, a millionfold, because not only is it a new beginning, it's a new beginning in which we are given the opportunity to release any old karma and step into a life that is more aligned with our highest good. Now, the hard part is realizing how we're stuck. realizing how we're repeating patterns, right? But those realizations should really kind of solidify and offer you a great deal of clarity really at the beginning of this week, because what's happening, first we have Mars trine Saturn. So Mars is the action we take, and Saturn is our desire to achieve some sort of solid progress or meet some sort of a goal, right? And so with Mars cooperating with Saturn, it really gives us a beautiful boost in the direction that we want to go. Now for you guys, Mars is in your 3rd house, Saturn is in your 11th. So it's all about the small circles that you move about in, friends, siblings, neighbors, yada yada. Those are small circles. And the larger circles that you circle in. So the greater community, the world, personal and professional connections in which you're kind of out there meeting new people, expanding your horizons, right? So basically there's a huge, huge, huge opening pathway happening for you guys where you are encouraged to branch out. You're encouraged to talk about your dreams and your desires. You're encouraged to make those phone calls, make those emails, you know what I mean? Sing from the top of a mountaintop about what it is that you're trying to bring into your life. Because on Wednesday, we have a new moon solar eclipse and a Cazimi activating Black Moon Lilith. And so you have an opportunity, because it's in your 6th house of daily routines and work, you have an opportunity to either make some sort of crazy breakthrough or leapfrog into a life in which you are able to be more authentically yourself than ever before. So one of the biggest things is if you are experiencing stagnation, if you are feeling like you're just a mouse on a treadmill and life just isn't doing it for you anymore, the magical potential that exists right now is for you to either make a jump or an upgrade when it comes to whatever it is you do on a daily basis. So if that's your day job where you're feeling stagnant, this is an opportunity for you to branch out and potentially find something new in which you're able to really spread your wings. If work is not a concern for you, then it would be about your health and your daily habits, in which you are maybe trying some new techniques, maybe joining some exercise groups. People go for hikes, or people who like to go swimming, you know what I mean? So the idea is definitely expanding your horizons, but the goal is living your best life and feeling as though the people who are around you are encouraging that and celebrating that, right? So right now, if you don't feel encouraged or celebrated, that's the thing that needs to switch. That's the thing that needs a little bit of attention. The grand trine that I was talking about in the general overview at the beginning, if you didn't catch that overview, you should definitely go check it out. There's a lot of really good information in there. We have a grand trine happening with Venus and Mars and Saturn, all in water signs. And for you guys, it's going to be activating your 3rd, 7th, and 11th houses. It is all about the people that you interact with on a daily basis. One-on-one connections, partners, friends, kids, siblings, whatever it is, roommates, but also coworker, boss, people in your community. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, I could do this by myself, but it wouldn't be very much fun. I want to feel honored for being by myself at the same time as connecting with other people. So if it doesn't feel like you get to be your authentic, sparkly self, that is where there's room to grow. Now, in the 2nd week of October, Mercury forms a challenging square to Mars. Mercury is in Libra. That is being really fair and balanced and with open ears and open mind, communicating in a way that is very receptive, very patient, and very kind. But if we are too patient and kind, we're not necessarily going to get our needs met, because there is more of a reluctance behind advocating for ourselves. So when Mercury, which is in Libra, fair and balanced, forms this challenging square to Mars in Cancer, Mars in Cancer is like getting really emotional, getting really like overclamped and being like, okay, I can't do this. I can't be patient anymore. I can't be receptive anymore. My feelings matter. And they do, right? So if you have a really, really, really emotional start to the week in the 2nd week of October, please allow your feelings to be a compass leading you to whatever needs to be changed or repaired, or maybe even tossed out the window. Your feelings really do matter. And so that activation is going to happen in the realm of something happening in your day-to-day life. Mercury is in your 6th house, Mars is in your 3rd. Your communication is going to be especially emotional. Even if you don't mean to, emotional undertones are going to be very, very apparent in whatever it is you say, whether it be a personal phone call or a business email. So just be conscious of that your emotions are going to be really obvious. And you may have someone be like, oh my God, but maybe it's time for you to be like, listen, I've been holding back, but this is how I really feel. This needs to be laid out on the table so that we can finally do something with it, right? So the tendency is going to be to hold back, but the open door, the open pathway that's going to activate and catalyze change is really laying it out on the table. And so what happens is shortly after that, on October 8th, Mercury forms a supportive angle to Jupiter. So we can find space in our conversations to achieve freedom. We can liberate ourselves, but with Mercury in Libra, where there's a tendency to hold space for other people more than ourselves, that's where we have to balance that and be like, okay, your needs matter, your feelings matter, but so do mine. And somewhere in the middle, we got to figure this out, right? And then Jupiter goes retrograde in your 2nd house. What that means is if you're looking to expand, if you're looking to grow, stretch outside of your comfort zone and stuff like that, Jupiter retrograde in your 2nd house is a potential indication that in order for you to step into a better situation, you might be taking a pay cut. Because Jupiter represents like, woo, things are getting bigger. Jupiter retrograde is, I need to minimize. I need to live simply. In your 2nd house of money and resources, that is especially important for you guys. So in order to make those next best steps, you're going to need to save. In order to find the better job or find the better connections or whatever it is, budget. Prepare to live off of less for a short amount of time. And then February of next year is when Jupiter goes direct again. So there's a high likelihood that over the winter for you guys, you might have less money available to you. It might be harder for you to access resources, but it's nothing that a little bit of planning can't help with, right? Just don't go crazy, no retail therapy, count your pennies, budget wisely. And then Pluto goes direct October 11th, which activates your 9th house. So any ways in which you felt dark or depressed within your headspace, any ways in which you felt progress was limited or your ability to grow was inhibited, that is all going to fall by the wayside. So the open door is here. The exit door is definitely making itself apparent, and opportunities and next best steps are definitely going to start lining up for you. The catch is just that money might be a little bit of a sticky point for a little bit, but it's not prohibitive. Don't let, like, for example, if you're looking at, maybe you have a job right now where you're like miserable, but you're making good money. But then you see a job open up where you like literally, it's like your perfect job, but it's a little bit of a pay cut. Doesn't matter. Go for it. Because being happy and working your favorite job and living your best life is always going to be a million times better than being miserable. Because no amount of money in the world makes being miserable tolerable, right? Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. That's what I've got for you guys. If you liked your horoscopes, definitely give a like, give a thumbs up. Feel free to comment below or even share these if you feel so inspired so that the word can get out to lots of other different people. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Mwah. Gemini Sun and Gemini Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There is so much going on right now. We've got a new moon solar eclipse on Wednesday, but right before the eclipse, we have what's called a Cazimi. And a Cazimi is like a light bulb moment. A Cazimi is an Arabic word that refers to in the heart of the sun. And this week's Cazimi is brought to you by the sun and Mercury. So what we're having is an opportunity to have some incredible realizations about what needs to shift, what needs to change in our lives. And the common theme is going to be, how can I empower myself to be free, to be my authentic self, to feel as though nothing's holding me back or nothing's telling me what to do. And for you guys in particular, the eclipse and the Cazimi is all going to be activating your 5th house, which is all about having fun. It's about being creative and playful, nurturing your inner child, but also advocating for yourself, saying like, hey, I matter, my feelings matter. So any ways in which maybe you've really been feeling held back, stuck in a rut, stuck in a loop, this is an opportunity to really shift that karma and release any of those old patterns of behavior and ways of living that are just outdated and just not helping you thrive. So the Cazimi that happens is just before the eclipse, but it all kind of clicks into place. And there's also a grand water trine happening with Mars in Cancer, Venus in Scorpio, and Saturn in Pisces. So if you allow yourself to be deeply in touch with your feelings, allow those feelings to flow, on the other side of big feelings is going to be essentially a compass. This is what is important to me. These are what my values are. This is what I'm no longer willing to tolerate, right? So behind your feelings is going to be awareness and possibilities around how to live a better life moving forwards. And the specific focus is around finances. It's about money, it's about work, it's about long-term goals, perhaps even a career, perhaps even like your estate, legacy, things like that, where you're building equity or building trust. And the idea here is not doing things the way that you used to, either getting a new role or a new energy or a new opportunity, a new platform in which that you can bring your sparkly magical shine and maybe be seen in a different light, maybe being appreciated or interacting with different people. So if you are able to find something in which you are more playful, more creative, more free, that is going to be the open door awaiting you. And if something else comes up as far as an opportunity in which you are less free, in which you are more inhibited or beholden to somebody else's restrictions, that is not the way to go. That is the old way. So anything free, fun, liberating, that's the new path for you. And what's happening is we are kind of being ushered into a new era. Even though these realizations might feel shocking, they're also liberating. Any blessings that come through might initially feel like a curse, but if you just give it a little bit of time, a week at the most, you're going to see how it's the best thing that ever happened for you. And so what's going on is that Mercury is, at the beginning of next week, Mercury is going to form a challenging square to Mars. So what you think and the action you want to take, they're not going to completely line up. And there might be this kind of recurring theme of, well, I want to take this action, but I don't want to bother anybody. Or I want to go in this direction, but I don't want to disappoint anybody. I want to move on, but I feel really bad leaving these guys behind. That is where a certain amount of self-preservation really has to kick in. On some level, you gotta choose yourself because, like I said, that's what's going to be liberating and freeing. So as you think about, okay, how can I have more fun, for example, there's going to be a challenge of, can I afford it? Is this realistic? Am I going to take a pay cut, for example? But again, if you are doing something that you love, it's not even going to feel like work. And so quality of life has more to do with than just money. It's about what you get to do, what energy you cultivate, but also the people that you spend time with, you know? Like you could have the best job in the world, but if your coworkers are miserable, you're not going to stay in that job for very long, right? So we do have to kind of look at the bigger complete picture. But again, if you're having to choose between two things, one offers joy and freedom and the other offers stability but misery, please choose the joy and freedom one. That's the open pathway. That's the new karma. And then Mercury forms a supportive angle to Jupiter. The more that you can free yourself, the more that you can give yourself permission to do something independent, creative, liberating, that is going to be your pathway to new karma instead of old karma. And then Jupiter goes retrograde. When is it? I forgot to write that down. October 9th. Jupiter goes retrograde October 9th. So there's going to be a realization right around that time where you realize that your external environment is only part of the picture. Whether or not you choose liberation or prison comes from in here, right? And sometimes we develop Stockholm syndrome where we have sympathy for our captors, whether it be a boss or a partner or something like that. But we have to take a step back and go, okay, I have to put myself first on some level in order to achieve these goals, these dreams, these ideals. So changing your belief systems is going to be a huge theme carrying over into the next year. Unlocking any parts of yourself, your mind, your beliefs, or otherwise, that have kept you stuck in some sort of a loop. It's all about, if you can see it, if you can see it, you can be it. If you can imagine it, you can do it. If you can dream it, you can live it. And so it is going to become really clear over the next 5 months that the most important piece is how you feel in here, and then your physical environment starts to click into place. So you may find that other people's opinions and perspectives are really causing confusion. You might find that the more you ask other people what to do or what they think, it's going to actually kind of cause you to be like, wait a minute, I don't know what to do now. So when all else fails, ask yourself what's important. Ask yourself what you need to do. And that's going to be the key to unlocking a better future. And then Pluto goes direct on October 11th, which is very, very exciting. It is going to come out of Capricorn very shortly, but when it goes direct on October 11th, it is activating your 8th house, giving you an opportunity to be either released from debt, released from old karma, or free yourself from any energies or connections that are really inhibiting your authenticity. So beautiful stuff, you guys. Just remember, sometimes blessings come in disguised as curses. Don't judge a book by its cover. Take a step back and ask, okay, what might this lead to? And how could this actually potentially work out to my benefit, right? So thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. If you enjoyed your horoscopes, please feel free to like, to share, comment below, share what's happening for you. You guys are always welcome to give your input, and love hearing how you guys are doing. So have a wonderful 2 weeks, and I'll see you later. Mwah. Bye. Cancer Sun and Cancer Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There's definitely a lot going on here, and with Mars in your sign, you are extra motivated to choose self-preservation. When sometimes just being a Cancer Sun or Cancer Rising, you may have experienced many times in your life where you have felt, for example, like a doormat, or maybe it feels a lot like life is just kind of happening to you and you keep having to deal with this and deal with that, right? But with Mars being in your sign for the next few months, it's an opportunity to say, me first, right? Or like, my feelings matter, my dreams and goals matter. And really kind of taking initiative in a way that maybe you wouldn't usually, but it's good for you. It's good for you to be proactive. It's good for you to choose self-preservation. So keep it up. Now, as we start this week, Mars forms a supportive angle to Saturn. And so that's where we're given an opportunity to kind of create a new life or create some sort of a new karmic opportunity for ourselves. And the key is going to be belief systems. It's going to be about whether or not you believe possibilities, or whether or not you are able to perceive or notice opportunities. So one thing that could work against you is being emotionally overwhelmed and just kind of shutting down. But if you can find a safe space to observe and not absorb, people watching, world watching, reading, studying, learning, if you can bring new food into your head, you're going to see new aspects of yourself and new possibilities in your life that you didn't necessarily see before. So rest, retreat if you need to. Honestly, there is a Cazimi and an eclipse happening on Wednesday, and it's all activating your fourth house. The fourth house is traditionally ruled by Cancer, and it's the foundation from which we grow. Now that foundation can be our family roots, it can be our literal home, and it can also be the heart. The heart is where the home is, right? And so there's a huge indication that, yeah, you guys really do need to take some space by yourselves. But if you can use that space by yourself to learn, to study, to explore possibilities uninhibited, then you're going to find on the other side of this period of reflection a whole new path, a whole new way of living your best life that, like I said, maybe you didn't see it before. Sometimes it takes shutting out the world in order to tune into ourselves just a little bit better, a little bit more clearly. So do that as much as you need to. It really does help your sign in particular. And the other thing that's happening in this first week of October is we have a grand trine in water signs. So there's Mars in your sign, Venus in Scorpio, and Saturn in Pisces. And this grand water trine gives us an opportunity to gently flow into a new reality. Excuse me. For you guys, it's activating your first, fifth, and ninth houses. So Mars in your first house is an opportunity to choose self-propelled momentum. Any changes in your life, make sure that you are making those changes and decisions for your own benefit, not for anybody else. Being a healthy level of selfish is going to get you where you need to be right now. The other part of it is that, what have we got? Scorpio. So Venus is in your fifth house, which is really neat because it really highlights how important it is for you to be silly and playful, but within the context of your favorite connections, feeling as though you can be emotionally liberated. So any connections that you have, you need to be able to be all the way over here, all the way over here, all the way down here, all the way up here, and have someone love you or hold space for you no matter where you are on the emotional spectrum. And so really continuing to pour your energy into opportunities or connections in which you are fully able to be your authentic self. Sorry, my cat's meowing at me. Being your authentic self is the only way to go right now. And when you do that, when you take space, when you choose only the connections in which you're completely free, then what happens, it's the trifecta, Saturn in your ninth house shifts as far as what realities, what possibilities you're able to notice and tap into. So with Saturn being in your ninth house, there's been this like heavy restrictive energy around possibilities. And it's been very hard to move past any kind of stark restrictive reality that you've been living. But taking space, being nourished by healthy connections, all of a sudden we see something really, really shift and click into place for you. And this is the week that it happens. So yeah, like I said, if you need to take space, if you need to make a blanket fort, if you need to shut out the world, do it. Because being uninhibited is going to give you the most freedom to imagine, to dream, and to activate new opportunities. And then as we move into the second week of October, Mercury in your fourth house. Yeah, Mercury in your fourth house forms a challenging square to Mars in your first house. So you may find on or around the 7th or the 8th of October that you're just in such a funk, nothing's going to happen. That's okay. Make some popcorn, watch a movie. Tomorrow's another day. Even when you feel emotionally overwhelmed, there's still information coming through from your emotions. So if you're able to pick apart, okay, this is what's happening for me. This is what triggered me. These are the belief systems that are being activated. These are the ways in which I feel drowned. pick it apart, do art, do journaling, singing, whatever it takes. But yeah, it's going to be really emotional for you around the 7th. And then on the 8th, Mercury forms a really supportive angle to Jupiter. So that's the whole like, wow, tomorrow's another day. You wake up, you're in a million times better of a mood, and all of a sudden everything feels possible. So big emotional roller coaster in the second week of October. And then Jupiter goes retrograde in your 12th house. So that's where something about the emotional turmoil that you experience right around October 7th or 8th is going to lead to this realization that maybe you're holding on to some really outdated beliefs and perspectives, and that's what's limiting you. Any ways in which you have been labeled by other people or internalized those labels from other people, those are the things that need to go. And I was just imagining in my mind's eye like a hello, my name is thing. Something about shifting your identity, something about creating space so that you can lock into an identity that you choose, not other people. Maybe you feel unfairly labeled or pegged or categorized by people who just don't get you. And the thing is that if you spend time with people who have no interest in knowing who you really are, and they just kind of make these blanket assumptions and labels and generalizations, those people really dim your shine. And as much as you can, try and avoid interacting with people like that. And then in the times that you have to, just create a character for them and be like, whatever, you're an NPC, doesn't even matter. It's a video game term for a character that does not actually have any soul. And it's just a joke. But you know what I mean? Like, sometimes when I've had to deal with some really difficult people, I just make up this game inside of my head where I'm like, whatever, I'm the bus driver for the funny farm and y'all are crazy. Your opinion doesn't matter. Whatever, right? So any ways in which you can kind of trick yourself into caring less about what people like that think, it will work to your benefit. I hope that makes sense. And then alternatively, really amping up the whole, any connections that you have in which you feel loved, unconditionally loved, supported, recognized by people who see you, right? Like really see you. Because when Pluto goes direct, October 11th, it's going to be in your 7th house. And that's where we see this really beautiful opportunity coming through for you to spend more time with sacred connections. So as much as you can, avoid vexatious, judgmental people. Recognize the ways in which you might have internalized other people's labels and judgments. Toss all that out the door, and then moving forward, selectively interacting with people who really see you for who you are, lift you up, encourage you to be your authentic self, because that's where the magic happens. So yeah. All right. Well, that's what I got for you guys. I hope you have an amazing magical eclipse. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed your horoscopes, feel free to like, to share, comment below. If you want to share your story, you're always welcome to. And I will see you guys next time. Bye. Mwah. Leo Sun and Leo Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We are looking at some crazy big shifts and changes happening here, but in a much more beautiful and profoundly full of potential way than we have experienced in a long time. We had a full moon lunar eclipse just about a week and a half ago, and it was quite disruptive. It has a way of kind of stirring up the dust and making problems really obvious. But the best way to deal with that is to look at those problems, those challenges, those conflicts dead on and go, okay, enough's enough. How can I deal with this? And now what we've got is this new moon solar eclipse coming up on Wednesday, and it's an opportunity to make a complete and total fresh start in a way that brings balance and harmony into our lives, into our partnerships, and yada yada. So before we have that eclipse, though, we have a really beautiful connection between Mars and Saturn. Mars is what we do, what action we take, and Saturn is the results. You know, sometimes when they are in conflict, it's kind of like fuck around and find out. But this is the most positive expression of Mars and Saturn. But it does really urge us to think about what changes are we making and in whose name are we making those changes. Because sometimes in the context of relationships, you know, personal or professional, we'll put our needs last because we're trying to support balance and harmony. But right now, the opposite is encouraged. Right now, we are encouraged to, yes, work towards balance and harmony, but also self-preservation. It is important for all of us to cultivate a life in which we feel liberated, in which we feel free to be our authentic selves. And that is the peak of energy with the new moon solar eclipse on Wednesday, because it aligns with Black Moon Lilith. And Black Moon Lilith says, fuck you to anybody who puts us in a box, right? So what's happening is that Mars is in your 12th house, bringing kind of this emotional overtone to the action that you want to take, the fears that you have hiding in the background, and the anxieties that might cloud your vision. And so at first you might start, you know, kind of over this weekend, feeling like something needs to happen, feeling like something needs to change, but not necessarily knowing what or where or why or how, right? And Saturn in your 8th house has been continually reminding you there's time to let go of old karma. It's time to step out of any repeating patterns that are keeping you stuck and keeping you stagnant, right? So yeah, over the weekend, you're going to have this sense of like, okay, something big needs to shift. What do I do? And then we have a Cazimi, which is like a light bulb moment in astrology, bringing heaps of clarity when it comes to what are my next best steps, or even if I don't know my next best steps, what are my values? What is most important to me? And it's our emotions that tell us what our values are. Because when we get right angry about something, ooh, that's a huge emotion. And it is telling me my boundary has been crossed, right? That something is coming into conflict with my core values. With Mars being in Cancer right now, it is a time of having big emotions come up. And the action that we take is going to be largely motivated by our emotional state. It's good to tune into our emotions and go, okay, where is my compass? But the risk is taking action that is not very well thought out. It is only propelled by big emotions. So we do have to kind of balance those influences for sure. But the light bulb moment and the new moon solar eclipse on Wednesday all happen in your 3rd house. And the 3rd house is ruled by Gemini. It's about our closest connections. It could be siblings, neighbors, our inner circle of friends. And it's associated with conversation, the connections that we make, maybe networking, maybe brainstorming or crowdsourcing, right? So basically, with Mars being in your 12th house, like I said, there's kind of like this vague, what is this? And so as much as you can, bring it into conversation. Whatever it is you're struggling with, lay it out on the table. Whatever feelings you're experiencing, find a way to articulate that. Because for you guys in particular, Leo Sun or Leo Rising, it is through conversation that you will make those connections. It is through conversation that you're going to achieve some sort of understanding. And your sign in particular is definitely known for wanting to talk things out, to be able to figure stuff out. Your sign does not typically like figuring things out on your own. You really do like that back and forth brainstorming magic, right? So definitely step into that. It's your strong suit. And as much as you can, you're going to want to also be receptive to other people's perspectives, because sometimes the truth is a little bit hard to hear. You know, if we're unconsciously repeating some sort of stupid pattern and then you go whining to your bestie, I don't know why this keeps happening. Sometimes we really need that bestie to go, you know what, darling? It's you. You keep repeating that pattern. You keep jumping into the same situation, or you keep making that same mistake, right? So please do be prepared for the occasional hard but necessary truth to be spoken within the context of safe conversations, right? Talk to someone who you know is going to tell you that no bullshit answer, but they're going to deliver it nice and easy, right? Because you need to hear it, you need to see it, you need to understand it in order to break free. And then what happens is that there's this grand water trine happening. Mars in Cancer, Venus in Scorpio, Saturn in Pisces. Mars and Saturn connected at over the weekend, but then it's on the 4th, which I believe is Friday, October 4th. That's when Venus joins the fun and really kind of completes this grand trine in water signs. And when Venus joins in, it's going to be an opportunity for you to validate your own emotions and move forwards in a way that supports your emotional health. So if part of the problem in the past is that you feel like your emotions don't matter, or maybe you feel like people are walking all over you, or maybe you feel as though you're struggling with something that's making you miserable, the light at the end of the tunnel, the realization, the clicking moment for you is going to be along the lines of your feelings matter. Yes, you can choose something different. Yes, you can empower yourself to walk away or make that change or whatever, right? The hesitation, though, really comes to a head. Did I write this down? When was the Mercury square Mars? Mercury square Mars on the 6th. Okay. So on October 6th, Mercury forms a challenging square to Mars. So that's whatever conversation we had, whatever ideas we had, just don't see the pathway yet. It's like, okay, yeah, I get it, but I don't know what to do. Or how do I do this without pissing everybody off? Or, right? How do I walk a path of self-preservation if it means potentially stepping on other people's toes? That's where we have to really embrace this beautiful Libra influence right now and work towards balance and harmony where everybody's needs are getting met on some sort of a level. But if you have to choose either my feelings or somebody else's, you're encouraged to validate and support your own first, right? And a lot of it I love using the analogy of being on an airplane, and they give you that safety announcement, right? Before stopping and putting an oxygen mask on somebody else, before helping somebody else, put your oxygen mask on first. Yours first. Because if you don't have oxygen and then you're trying to help somebody and you fall out because you don't have any oxygen, you're no help to anybody, right? And so I love using that analogy because it covers a lot of bases. It covers emotional needs, mental, psychological, spiritual needs, right? If you're always putting yourself last, you're going to be miserable and you're not going to be any help to anyone, least of all yourself. So that's kind of the thing that needs to switch, and sometimes it's through conversations that other people help us see what's been missing. And so definitely I encourage you to have conversations with safe people who will not only deliver the news gently, but also call you on your shit, right? We all need that. Yeah. And then there's a big switch. By October 8th, Mercury forms a supportive angle to Jupiter. So that's when all of a sudden the exit door or your next best steps start to become really, really clear. And then Jupiter goes retrograde on October 9th, activating your 11th house. It could be about withdrawing from a group of friends. It could be about taking a step back instead of being such an active role in your community. It could be about potentially moving or keeping to yourself, but basically it's about rethinking what makes life meaningful to you instead of providing meaningfulness to other people. Something having to do with you guys really just kind of spreading your love everywhere, but not feeling like your needs are getting met. Maybe helping other people be creative, helping other people thrive or love themselves or whatever it is. And then at the end of the day, you're like, nobody's looking after me. So instead of getting stuck in a pity party, instead of questioning your self-worth or anything like that, withdraw your energy, withdraw your time, withdraw your efforts, put that oxygen mask on yourself, and then see what changes, right? It doesn't mean completely withdraw, but it does mean you got to look after yourself. And when you make sure that your needs are met, then you will be able to give and live generously, openly, without feeling resentful, without having this kind of background noise of something's missing, something doesn't feel right, right? Yeah. All right, awesome. Oh yeah, and then Pluto goes direct on October 11th, activating your 6th house. So something having to do with work, daily routines, or health. If you've been struggling with any health stuff, there's some sort of a breakthrough, possibility, open pathway, new potential for healing, health, wealth, or good balance happening in your life on or around October 11th, because Pluto goes direct. So any heaviness, any darkness, any ways in which you felt disempowered, the breakthrough, the opportunity, the exit doors will become apparent on or around October 11th. So go for it. Awesome. That's what I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed these, feel free to like and share if you feel so inspired. And if you want, feel free to share your story down below. Let people know if these resonated. If you want to share anything about what, like really clicked for you, you guys are totally welcome to. I love hearing your stories. Awesome. All right. Well, I hope you enjoy the eclipse. I will see you next time. Mwah. Bye. Virgo Sun and Virgo Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. Now, with all these planets moving into Libra, it definitely feels like the pressure is off. So instead of feeling like this intense, like, I have to notice all the things, I have to fix all the things. Now, hopefully your stress has been reduced a little bit, and largely the stress that was happening, I mean, some of it was external, but a lot of it was internal. A lot of it was the realizations, the thought processes that you were going through, noticing details, wanting to make sweeping changes. But of course, you're only one person and we only have one day at a time, right? So maybe you came out of Virgo season with a to-do list a mile long, but there's blessings coming, there's realizations, and freedom. Freedom is fun. The reason I mentioned that is because Black Moon Lilith figures very prominently in the new moon solar eclipse that we're having on Wednesday. If you didn't catch it, definitely go back to the beginning of the video and check out the general overview where I give a really cool analysis of the quality of time right now and how the energetic shift is really propelling all of us into living our best lives, or at least getting closer to that, right? And it all starts from within. With Mars in your 11th house right now, there is that desire to bring more meaningfulness into your life. Although you are a creature of habit, Virgo Sun or Virgo Rising, although you do thrive when you are in service to others, you, just like anybody else, hits your limit. And if it feels as though you've been giving and giving and giving, but not really getting much in return, Mars moving through your 11th house for the next few months is encouraging you to get out there, spread your wings, take a day off, dance, sing, create, rebel, whatever it is, right? But you don't have to be like stationed at your desk all the time. You don't have to be working 8 days a week, right? Right. So basically there is this beautiful water sign influence happening over the first week of October. Mars is in Cancer, Venus is in Scorpio, and Saturn is in Pisces. Those are the 3 water signs, and they form what's known as a grand trine this week. So as I mentioned, Mars in your 11th house is encouraging you to spread your wings a little bit, have a little bit more fun, arts, music, stuff like that makes you feel glad to be alive, right? And with Saturn in your 7th house, things have felt kind of stagnant with your one-on-one relationships lately. Maybe you are working too much and don't have any time to hang out with friends or partners or whatever, right? And that's where kind of getting annoyed with yourself or annoyed with your routines is good, because now you're going to switch it up. Now you're going to be like, okay, I can't work all the time. I do need to go have some fun. And if you feel that you are bored with your friends or bored with your partners, this is a fantastic opportunity to really spread your wings and, and meet some new people, make some new connections. Because one of the biggest things that you guys struggle with is that even in your personal connections, you're working. You're the therapist, you're the helper, you're the healer, you're the advisor. And so that's where you're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. You know, this friend, they only call me when they need advice. Or, you know, my lover just treats me like their maid. I'm not put on this planet to cook and clean all the time. Like, what the heck, right? So whatever ways in which you feel stagnant or perhaps even disgruntled and frustrated, please validate those emotions for yourself. You don't have to continue repeating those patterns. You do not have to be in service to everyone you meet. And so the cool thing about spreading your wings and kind of expanding your connections, maybe do something different socially, getting out into your community and you know what I mean? Like switch things up a little bit, because what happens is when you meet new people, you can see yourself differently through different eyes. You have the opportunity to set new precedent in which you aren't working within your personal connections, right? So change is good, and sometimes that's what we need. Now there's a Cazimi and a new moon solar eclipse this week. Cazimi means that the sun and Mercury are in the exact same spot, and the new moon solar eclipse is the sun, moon, Mercury, and Black Moon Lilith is going to be profoundly liberating. And sometimes it's just one of those moments where we're like, you know what? I feel like going dancing or whatever it is, right? Sometimes it's just this spontaneous moment of being like, damn it, I want to do something differently. But that's where the magic happens. So please do allow yourself to step out of your routine, step out of your comfort zone. And what you're going to find is a new alignment with values. Because this eclipse magic is happening in the sign of Libra, the focus for everyone is going to be on one-on-one connections and whether or not we have balance and harmony within those connections. And so, especially if you're finding that the connections you have are kind of stale and not fulfilling, then stepping into new opportunities, new connections is going to allow you the opportunity to realign with your values. Because it's not just about whether or not people see you as valuable. You want to feel as though people value you for something other than what you do for them. You want to feel valued as an individual, even if you're not doing a damn thing. And a lot of Virgos struggle with that concept, especially if you have any kind of early roots of conditional love. Conditional love means I don't believe people are going to love me unless I do something to earn it, or I do something so that they see me as useful, right? And so any ways in which you are limited because of those sorts of belief systems, because of those perspectives maybe even pushed on you by other people, this is where it kind of clicks and you're like, wait a minute, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to answer the phone when that person calls. I don't have to date this person who treats me like their mother. F that, right? So this is a really cool magical opportunity to really realign with your values, especially when it comes to the context of one-on-one connections. Now, I do want to clarify one-on-one connections. It could be a lover, it could be a bestie, it could be a roommate, it could be a coworker, a boss, a business partner, basically anything in which you're dealing one-on-one with somebody, right? And so it does cover a lot of ground, but basically that's the idea. You are someone who desperately needs to feel as though you are having intelligent conversation with people. And that intelligent conversation needs to come reciprocal, right? Not just you saying things and people going, oh, wow, okay. You know what I mean? You need other people to have intelligent things to say as well, right? And so basically what's happening is with Mars forming a trine to Saturn, you're like, oh yeah, I can spread my wings, I can make new connections. And then Venus forms a trine to Saturn going, oh, I am really attracted to people who can uphold an intelligent, colorful conversation, right? And so this is where there's huge potential for you to release any unhealthy or stagnant or outdated connections that are just not doing it for you, and plant the seeds for new beginnings. Within the context of any new people that you're meeting, be really, really mindful about the precedent that is set, especially because you're such good listeners. If you don't share anything about yourself, then you're gonna reset that precedent into, I help you, I heal you, I listen to you, but I'm fine, right? If you want that reciprocity within your relationships, you have to open up. You have to share vulnerability on some level, and obviously take your time, figure out if people are trustworthy first. But just across the board, be mindful of the precedent that is set very, very early within your relationships, because that's what ends up carrying through. And then in the second week of October, Mercury in your second house is going to mean that you are thinking a lot about where your values are. And Mars in your 11th house is, I am going to find people who resonate with me. I am going to expand my horizons. I'm going to reach out and connect with my community in a different way, or connect with the world in a different way. And I am going to seek out people who align with my energy, who align with my values, not just people who are like, oh, what can I get from you? Right? It's done. It's over. When you're working, great, you're working. But when it's a personal connection, you should not be working. And so all of these things really start to shift, especially by the second week of October. October 8th, Mercury forms a supportive angle to Jupiter, allowing you to really kind of lock into these new connections, step down this new pathway, start to establish new patterns, especially patterns of relating. And you're going to need to be especially mindful of any of those yucky thoughts in your head that go, people are only going to love you if you're nice. People are only going to love you if you're doing something for them. You got to let go of that. Notice those belief systems and go, no, right? Therapy helps. Healing, talking about these things, thinking about your family roots, your family of origin, asking yourself, why did I come to believe this? And then ask, is this even real? Right? Because a real friend is not going to ask you to do anything. If people only like you because you're doing something for them, that's not a friend. And if the only friends you have are people who treat you like a commodity or treat you like a service person, then that's the problem. It's not that you're unlovable. It's just that you're with shallow people who don't really appreciate you. So the big energy this week is all about authenticity. It's all about fierce rebellion, saying no to being used or abused or walked all over, and really standing up for yourself in a way that you are able to align with your ideals, align with your core values, validate your emotions, create that emotional safety, all in a way that aids balance and harmony within your life. So just remember, sometimes blessings are disguised as curses. Sometimes when a relationship has been dying for a long time and it finally hits the break, we might have that grief, right? But if you look at situations with clarity and awareness, you might go, actually, that needed to happen. It's a good thing that that happened, right? Jupiter goes retrograde October 9th, encouraging you to rethink all those belief systems that lead to precedent and ongoing patterns. Be mindful of the subconscious thoughts that you have inside of your head that perpetuate these patterns. And then Pluto goes direct on October 11th, activating your 5th house of joy and play and creativity. So again, when you're around different people, you might find that you're more joyful and more creative and more talkative because people aren't expecting anything out of you. So giving yourself the opportunity to laugh, to play, to have fun, and really kind of liberate yourself is where the magic is going to happen. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. Feel free to like and share and subscribe. You can comment below and share your experiences if you wish. You are always welcome to. And I will see you next time. Mwah. Bye. Libra Sun and Libra Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. The highlight for everyone, but especially you guys, is a new moon solar eclipse in your sign on Wednesday, October 2nd. And anytime we have a new moon, it is a time for new beginnings, planting seeds, starting fresh. But a new moon solar eclipse amplifies that energy, like a millionfold. And when it happens in your sign in particular, it's an opportunity to have that releasing the past, renewing your efforts, recalibrating your energy, and starting fresh in a way that will quite possibly feel all encompassing. It goes beyond the whole like new you, although your physical outer appearance might have a part to do with it. But aside from that, anytime we have such focused, intense astrological energy in the sign of Libra, Libra is represented by the scales, and it's associated with one-on-one connections. So what we have in the scales is a sense that from a common connecting point, either shared values, shared goals and desires, every relationship we have has something like the top of the scales that holds the little scales. The top point represents that there's going to be something in common, a common thread, or a shared energy, or whatever it is, right? And so within the context of relationships, there's always give and take. You know, conversations will go back and forth, energy and love will be given and taken, and the idea is reciprocity. The idea, especially in Libra season, is that everything eventually balances out. And so the points at which we tap out, the points at which we go, this is not working, I want out, what we're thinking about is there isn't balance. There isn't health or harmony or reciprocity, right? But when we share something in common, sometimes it's really hard to make those difficult decisions. The energy that's happening right now is encouraging self-preservation. And so because Libra is so harmonious and so focused on making sure that everybody gets their fair share, Libras often have a really hard time with indecision because they're always weighing things out. And Libras often have a really hard time stepping in a certain direction or advocating for themselves or defending themselves, because it is so easy for someone with Libra influence to see the other side of the story. And so this open-minded, understanding perspective only goes so far. And so I invite you to think about any aspects of your life in which you feel there's a lack of balance and harmony, or maybe you feel like your needs aren't getting met, or something along those lines, right? Because since this is happening in your first house of identity and self-expression, this is where it could either have to do with maybe you feel like you can't speak your truth, maybe you feel like people don't share values or honor or respect you in the way that you need to, or it could be a matter of new you. Maybe you're fine with every other aspect, and maybe the thing that's really kind of coming forward during this time is a desire to change something about your identity, change something about your outer appearance. So however the cards play out for you guys, basically that's the dominant energy. The new moon solar eclipse not only is an opportunity for new beginnings within the context of relationships or applied to anything in our lives that needs more balance and harmony. The other side of that is that this new moon solar eclipse is also aligned with Mercury, the planet of communication, and Lilith. Now, Black Moon Lilith, if you haven't watched the beginning of the video where I do a general overview, I definitely recommend you go check it out, because there's a lot of information as far as the current quality of time. And what I explain is the meaning of Lilith. Now, Black Moon Lilith is a mathematically calculated point. It's not actually a planet or anything. I've got the full scoop in the beginning of the video. But the idea is this influence of Lilith's position in the sky is encouraging all of us to be fiercely rebellious. If your authenticity is at stake, if your honor, if your dignity, if your self-respect is at stake, these are the points at which we're going to tap out, especially just because of the energy that's catalyzing changes right now. And on the other side of that, what we're doing is we're stepping into new opportunities, new karma, new relationships that support our health and well-being and our authenticity. And because this new moon solar eclipse is happening conjunct to the South Node, the other implication is that we are releasing the old. You know, we can't really bring in new unless we get rid of the old. So you may feel like cleaning house. You might feel like metaphorically cleaning house, either cleaning out your friends list on social media, taking a really good look at the relationships you have in your life and just kind of evaluating whether or not you want to put more energy into them, or maybe you want to kind of take a step back. But across the board, I really do encourage you to be a healthy level of selfish as far as just asking some hard-hitting questions like, am I getting my needs met? Does this situation, does this person, does this relationship allow me to fully express myself? Does this relationship support my growth, or does this relationship hold me back in some sort of way? Now, when I say relationship, I do want to clarify it could be personal or professional. Libra influence applies to one-on-one connections. If you are a business owner, it could be between yourself and clients. If you are in a traditional job, it could be between yourself and a coworker, or yourself and the boss. But what I'm going for is just those face-to-face connections, right? It could be a lover, it could be a bestie, it could be a roommate, anything along those lines, right? Because it's in those contexts of these one-on-one connections that precedent is set. And the idea of rebalancing, if one person is getting their needs met, they're not going to think about whether or not the relationship needs rebalancing, because they're going to be like, I'm good, right? And that's what's really hard about having a conversation about relationships, is that often somebody will come to the table and be like, my needs are not getting met. I'm having a hard time. I'm feeling like this is imbalanced. But often when one person is giving and giving and giving, and they're saying this is too much, the other person who's getting all their needs met and more is going to say, what are you talking about? What's the problem? I'm doing awesome. Right? Now, because Mercury just moved into Libra as well, the nature of our communications is definitely going to be taking a much more respectful and honorable tone. This is good, because with Venus and Scorpio, we're feeling a little bit spicy. But the way that we kind of talk things out is going to be easier for us to speak in a way that really articulates our experience, clarifies any confusion or misunderstandings, and also holds the space for the other person to respond. Now, again, I just really want to bring your attention to what a healthy level of selfish looks like. If you try and have a conversation and the other person's like, sounds like a you problem, I'm doing fine, that's a big red flag. It is not an opportunity to stop talking and suck it up. No. It's an opportunity to recalibrate, release, and move on with your life, where you're going to be respected and honored and valued in a way that is more in alignment with your highest good. So like I said, don't be afraid to reevaluate. Don't be afraid to clear out your friends list, either in real life or on social media, because what happens is, if we have too many imbalanced relationships in our lives, over time, we end up not only resentful, but we also end up with really, really, really low sense of self-worth. Because if the people in our lives are just not offering us any kind of value or validation or nourishment, then depending on what our roots are, it might feed into concepts of conditional love. It might feed into concepts of, I'm not good enough, my feelings don't matter, I'm not allowed to ask for more. So whatever it is that's playing out in your life, it's not just about the things that are right in front of you, but the other half of that is your internal experience. However you frame your experiences, either by saying this is totally not fair, or maybe I deserve it, right? We have to be really, really open and honest with ourselves, and practice observing your thoughts. Instead of running the same tapes over and over and over, ask yourself, why am I thinking this? Why am I putting up with this? So yeah, just consider which side of the scale you're on, a giver or a taker, or if it's happy in the middle, that's awesome, right? But during this time, the things that are really going to be calling for our attention are the things that are not awesome. So in addition to this new moon solar eclipse that we have on Wednesday, October 2nd, we also have a grand trine in water signs. So the highlight is around emotions, but it's also around whether or not there's good flow. If you are hoping for flow in a conversation and you put your heart on the table and you're like, hey, I'm having this issue, and the other person's like, not my problem. Is there flow? No. So if there's no flow, that's the other thing that's really going to be irking you. It's like, okay, it's impossible to make any progress. Might as well chuck it in the fuck it bucket, right? So the Grand Trine involves Mars in Cancer, which is for you guys in your 10th house. So that means all the action that you're taking and the goals that you're setting and pursuing for yourself, there's a lot of emotions behind them. And that's where things kind of get sticky, because if you are having a hard time achieving your goals and you have an internal dialogue that is something along the lines of I suck or I'm doomed to fail, that's where we get stuck in a loop. And so being a healthy level of selfish gives us the opportunity to really pick and choose who is allowed in our life, and picking and choosing healthy connections that encourage us to grow, encourage us to thrive, encourage us to seek more fertile ground in which we are able to plant those seeds for the future, right? So even though there's a lot of emotions for you guys around action, goals, obstacles, and the future, your emotions are a compass. And in that compass, you are being given very clear information about whether or not your lines are being crossed, whether or not your values are aligning with the values of the people around you, right? So when all else fails, ask your heart. That's where the truth is going to come from. But be mindful of the ways in which your mind twists things around and gets you stuck. There's a difference, right? And so the grand water trine that's happening also involves Saturn in your 6th house. There's a bit of heavy around day-to-day routines, work, boring stuff. But there is this sense that on a certain level, not everything's going to be awesome. So you guys do have a healthy level of acceptance around what is an appropriate amount of joy to expect out of life, as well as a very diligent work ethic when it comes to working towards your goals. So you've got a lot of good things going for you, but you also have a huge challenge of potentially self-sabotaging headspace and beliefs. The problem about self-sabotaging beliefs is when we act on them, and when we frame other people's behaviors as a reflection of the negative things that we're thinking about ourselves, right? Our minds can really screw with us. So if there's anything for you to kind of disregard, please disregard any negative thoughts happening for yourself. Pay attention to how you feel. It's a very black and white thing. Either I feel good around this person or I feel like garbage, right? It's going to be one or the other. And the eclipse offers you an opportunity to start fresh, to release the past, invite in the new. And then as we move forwards into the second week of October, we do have some really cool things. Jupiter goes retrograde in your 9th house, which again is inviting you to rethink your belief systems. Get rid of any stinking thinking inside of your head. It is a term used by people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction, because when we go to self-deprecating behaviors, when we go to self-sabotage or disassociation or any of those things, what we're doing is we're saying, I tap out, I can't handle this. If you make sure that your headspace is a safe space, no stinking thinking, don't be your own worst enemy, then 99% of life feels way more manageable, because you're not fighting a battle in here. You're just having to solve some problems out here. But in here is always safe. In here is always loving and kind and compassionate. So start in here, and then the ripple effect comes out here, right? And then the other thing is that Pluto goes direct on October 11th. That's in your 4th house. So if you do the shadow work, if you rethink your belief systems, then what is opening up is a new, healthy, emotional foundation from which you will genuinely thrive moving forwards instead of just fighting to survive. So just make sure this is safe and this is as healthy as possible. And then it becomes really, really clear who belongs in your life and who is simply making things harder. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys have a magical time. Happy birthday to any Libras out there. Feel free to like and comment and share if you enjoyed your horoscopes, and I will see you next time. Mwah! Bye. Okay. Oh, I went a little bit overtime. Okay. Scorpio Sun and Scorpio Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. Now, Venus, the planet of love, trust, connections, and abundance, has just moved into your sign. So if you're feeling extra sensual, if you're feeling like extra good at manifesting stuff right now, that's probably why. Because from a place of self-love and self-confidence, things really do move much, much more smoothly in life. If we come into a job interview being like, I'm awesome, we're going to get hired, right? So that's where self-love can really work to our benefit. In the context of relationships, same kind of thing. If you set your standards high, you're like, I only tolerate love and respect, then your relationships are going to be healthy, right? But we kind of self-sabotage sometimes if we don't think the best of ourselves. And that's really kind of one of the things that's coming to a head for you guys, because we have a new moon solar eclipse in Libra on Wednesday, October 2nd. For you guys, it's in your 12th house of hidden mysteries. Now, the thing about the 12th house, excuse me, I'm burping. The 12th house can be our dreams and our intuition, but I'll tell you, as a professional psychic, I didn't get really good at what I do until I made mental health a priority. And the reason is because it's virtually impossible to be creative or intuitive if up here is a hot mess. So if there's any self-sabotage happening up here, if there's any stinking thinking, if there's any ways in which you are making things harder by being your own worst enemy, that's what has to change. Now, the really cool thing about any new moon is that it offers us an opportunity for a refresh and a new beginning. The new moon solar eclipse amplifies that powerful potential by 1,000 and really kind of locks it in on like a karmic and cellular level. Now, the new moon solar eclipse happening in your 12th house is not just the sun and moon, but also Mercury and Black Moon Lilith. Now, if you didn't catch it already, I would definitely encourage you to go back to the beginning of the video where I do a general overview because I talk about the quality of time for everybody, but I also tell a little story about who Lilith is and why she figures so prominently in astrology. Long story short, I'm going to paraphrase, but she represents fierce rebellion and refusing to subordinate yourself to serve other people in a way that is dehumanizing, demoralizing, or causes you to lose freedom or lose authenticity. Now, you guys in particular are some of the most authentic zodiac signs, but not everybody recognizes it because your zodiac sign is associated with Pluto, which is personal power, but also shadow work. And people who have done a lot of shadow work, people who are comfortable with their personal power in a healthy way, can often trigger other people who haven't done shadow work or who don't feel comfortable with their own personal power. So sometimes Scorpios will experience something along the lines of feeling like people either love you or hate you and nothing in between. That's why. It's because people sense off of you something that either makes them feel comfortable or they feel triggered by it and then respond accordingly. So on that note, this week we have a new moon solar eclipse in Libra that is highlighting personal relationships and professional ones. Libra just refers to one-on-one connections, but that can cover anything. It could be a lover, a bestie, a roommate, a neighbor, a coworker, a boss, any of those face-to-face connections or over the phone connections. And it's in those one-on-one connections that you really notice whether or not someone is either comfortable in your presence or perhaps triggered by your energy. Instead of internalizing other people's behavior, of course, we all need to take a solid look at, okay, what am I possibly doing to contribute to this energetic frequency happening here? But the other part of it is that you have to let go of how other people behave on a big level, simply because you never really know what's happening below the surface. You know, no matter how psychic or intuitive you are, there's so much. Every single person is this little tip of an iceberg. You have no idea what happened in their previous life or, you know, family of origin or anything like that, right? So a lot of us have a tendency to internalize other people's behavior. That is going to become especially apparent for you guys, Scorpio Sun or Scorpio Rising. And I just want to encourage you, don't take responsibility for other people's BS if it genuinely wasn't yours, right? And when we have this new moon solar eclipse, the other really cool thing that's happening that's going to be a big boost for your sign and any water signs is a grand trine. So a grand trine is when 3 planets line up exactly to create a triangle, and they're each happening in water signs. We've got Mars in Cancer, which for you guys is your 9th house, Saturn in Pisces, which is your 5th house, and then Venus in Scorpio, which is in your 1st house of identity and self-expression. So as you kind of get this boost of self-confidence and self-love brought to you courtesy of Venus, the other part of it is kind of having some serious heavy reflections, because with Mars in your 9th house, you want to take action that brings you closer to freedom and authenticity, but there's a lot of really deep emotions and potentially history behind whether or not those directions feel achievable, whether or not it feels like there are any possibilities, whether or not you feel capable of pursuing any possibilities. So it's never as simple as, oh, I'm going to do this, when there's a lot of emotions involved. But the other part of it is the concept of flow, you know, and sometimes we're just trying to do a thing, and it's just brick wall, brick wall, brick wall. But if we take a step back and go, okay, where's the flow? Oh, I can go around. There's a different way. So the energy right now can be best used by tapping into any kind of universal flow that is available to you. If you want to get from point A to point C and it's just not happening, sometimes we have to go, well, if I go from A to B and then B to C, that'll get me there. And even though this feels like a little bit of a detour or a side quest, I can see how I can leapfrog actually to the place I want to be. I just have to be a little bit more patient for things to play out, right? So expand your awareness, go with the flow, look for open opportunities, and don't tolerate anybody's toxic behavior. Alternatively, don't be the toxic person either. This is going to be a very eye-opening experience, but for you guys, the risk with the eclipse being in your 12th house is that if you have a long-standing pattern of going, la, 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 I don't want to look at that, this isn't going to help. This is going to help. This is going to have you kind of lock into that. We have an opportunity personally and collectively to break free of repeating karma, especially in the context of these one-on-one connections. So don't let this opportunity pass you by. Don't repeat the same mistakes, even if you're hooking up with different people, friends, whatever. Even if you're making new connections with new people, if you repeat the same behavior, if you repeat the same energetic exchanges, it's going to end up the same, right? So it is all about trying new approaches. It is all about cultivating a different energy within us to achieve a different external result. As above, so below. As within, so without. We have to think about that balance, and that is the nature of Libra season. So moving into the second week of, second week of October, this is where things start to kind of click into place, because Mercury is in Libra, your 12th house. So there's a lot happening subconsciously, superconsciously, like so much happening where you're like trying to figure out the answers, trying to solve the puzzle, follow the clues, right? And Mars in your 9th house, you may get in your own way if big emotions happen, or if you get triggered into falling back on old repeating behavior. So the best thing you could possibly do to make the most out of this time right now is just be hyper aware of your own contributions towards imbalance and toxicity. As long as you can be humble and aware, that will open your eyes to exactly what needs to change. And then boom, whole new life opening up for you within the context of relationships and balance and harmony. And then Mercury forms a really supportive angle to Jupiter. So the other thing is that if you are willing to take that deep look, that deep dive, that shadow work, you can seriously change your karmic patterns. You can fully release old karmic lessons and move into an aspect of living freely. We only repeat karma until we figure it out. And then when we figure it out, it's like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Okay, bye. Now I'm going to do this, right? It seems simple when I give that, description, but when our emotions get involved, but more importantly, when our egos get involved, it seems like a mystery. So if things feel like a mystery to you, the answer is probably that it's you. But if you're trying to figure out why other people are doing this and other people are doing this, it's possible it's all about the scales. It's a little bit of you and it's a little bit of them, right? And then just to close things off, Jupiter goes retrograde October 9th. So rethinking how you play into your repeating patterns. And then Pluto, your ruling planet in traditional astrology, goes direct in your 3rd house. So there is huge possibility around October 11th when Pluto goes direct for you to change who you interact with. 3rd house is close connections. It's siblings, it's neighbors, it's besties. It's your inner circle. It's the people that you talk to the most often. When Pluto goes direct in your 3rd house, it's an opportunity to feel like the shadow work has been completed and now you can move forwards in an uninhibited way. But if part of the shadow work is realizing that you're in a really toxic circle, then Pluto going direct means maybe leaving those people behind and establishing some new connections that encourage you to thrive, encourage you to be your authentic self, and reach towards a path of humble honesty and awareness, right? So of course, this is going to apply to everyone in a slightly different way, just depending on where you're at on that spectrum. But that's the long and the short of it. So I hope you guys have a magical eclipse. I hope you have a fantastic couple of weeks. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. Feel free to like and share and subscribe if you feel so inclined. You can also comment below and share your thoughts. You're always welcome to. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Mwah. Sagittarius Sun and Sagittarius Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. We've got a lot going on this week. We've got a new moon solar eclipse, Jupiter goes retrograde, Pluto goes direct. There is so much going on. So let me break it down for you. By the way, if you didn't catch the general overview at the beginning of this video, I definitely suggest that you do, because I give more of a well-rounded idea of the quality of time and all of these different factors clicking into place. But whether or not you're a Sagittarius Sun or Sagittarius Rising, basically what's happening is that you are achieving a high level of breakthrough. There's something about a repeating pattern when it comes to your role in a community or your sense of belonging or not belonging that has the opportunity to shift drastically. Now, when we have a low opinion of ourselves, we often will stick with the same friends, whether or not they're in our highest good. When we have a low opinion of ourselves, we are less likely to reach for high goals. We're less likely to choose healthier people because on some level, either conscious or subconscious, we live in these crappy situations, and on some level we're like, well, maybe I deserve this. Maybe this is as good as it gets. So my hope is that in the last little bit, you guys have been infused with self-love and self-confidence, because from a place of believing in yourself and setting your standards high, that's where magic happens. So what we've got in the first week of October, some two pretty cool things happening together. Now, Mars in Cancer, Venus in Scorpio, and Saturn in Pisces, all three of them are in different water signs. And those three planets in the three water signs are creating this beautiful triangle, which is known in astrology as a grand trine, when all 3 points are met exactly. Now, that exact alignment is happening between September 30th and October 4th as they kind of click into place. And what it means is, if we listen to our feelings, if we validate our emotions, if we listen to our intuition and allow ourselves to be gently redirected, we will find incredible flow when it comes to achieving our goals, getting to where we need to be, getting out of where we need to get out of, and really aligning with our highest path on every level. And I'm going to break it down for you. Mars is in Cancer. For you guys, it's in your 8th house. So there's been a lot of emotions around debt, shared responsibilities, repeating patterns, and themes of karma. And as you have been plugging through, really working hard to achieve your goals, really working hard to overcome obstacles, what you've been noticing is that a lot of deep emotions are coming from below. And that is where we start to notice, ooh, I'm not being very nice to myself, or realizing that we have low self-esteem, or realizing that we have, you know what I mean? When Mars is in Cancer, our ability to take action is often sidelined by big emotions. Mars does not do very well in Cancer. Mars is associated with originally Aries and Scorpio, but that was in traditional astrology. But then when Pluto was discovered, Pluto became Scorpio's ruler. So Mars and Aries. Mars is a planet that wants to just freaking go. And Aries is a laser beam fire sign that's like, let's freaking go. And when Mars is in Cancer, which is a deep sea aquatic creature, it's like, where am I? I'm drowning. I don't know what to do. So collectively, there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration, a lot of really big emotions. But for you guys, for that to be happening in your 8th house, what is coming to the surface is a lot of thoughts and feelings around repeating patterns, including things like self-worth or self-confidence, including things like money. And money is the one thing that every couple argues about. Money is the one thing that can make any human doubt their self-worth, because you could be amazing. Like artists, like, I mean, people in art school study, for example, Vincent van Gogh. Everybody knows Starry Night. Everybody knows Vincent van Gogh's incredible art that now sits for millions of dollars worth of value in the fanciest museums. Did you know he died poor and alone? So that is the thing, that we don't always get that recognition. We don't always get that confirmation from the world around us that we're freaking awesome. And when we do, we can crumble. Or when we don't get that, we can crumble, right? So this is where I'm saying money is not a reflection of your self-worth. And the times that we spend either struggling or unemployed or whatever it is, often because we're not making money, because we're not achieving success, we feel like we are not successful or we are not worthy. And so with big emotions, it's very hard to separate the two. What is good about this grand water trine that's happening right now is that Mars in Cancer, making you feel like garbage if you're not successful or whatever's happening for you, is now not sitting by itself, but supported by Venus and Scorpio that says, oh, darling, love those dark parts of yourself. Love the parts of yourself that feel like they're swimming in the ether. Love the parts of yourself that are passionate and fiery. And then Saturn in Pisces says, you have been on this planet millions of times before. That this tiny little human existence you're having is just a snapshot of such a grand, beautiful, limitless existence, right? Puh, money, right? So that's where there's an opportunity this week and over the next couple of weeks to really gain a little bit of clarity, to kind of surface above the feelings that you might have been drowning in, feeling like you've got a surfboard and you're like, oh, okay. Some days I'm going to feel like garbage, and some days nothing's going to make me feel better, but that's okay. I don't have to live there. On those days that I feel full of despair, I will clear my schedule. I'll get myself a, bag of popcorn and watch my favorite movie. You know what I mean? Like, if you learn to ride out those big emotions, you will be able to gain a sense of perspective that goes, oh, okay. That was just a bad day, bad week, bad year, whatever it was, but I can surf it. I am more than that. I'm not stuck there. I moved through it, right? So whatever ways in which you are able to find flow, find peace, find solace, find comfort, seek those out and allow those opportunities, those connections, those moments to fill your cup and nourish your soul. Because this new moon solar eclipse happening on Wednesday, October 2nd, activates your 11th house of shooting for the stars and ending up somewhere freaking awesome. The 11th house is associated with all the things that make humans special. All the things that make tears fall down your cheeks in the most beautiful, profound ways. Art, music, helping out people who are in need. So it has to do with like humanitarian work, anything transcendent, anything that allows us to kind of step out of this heavy third dimensional reality and be like, whoa, there's no such thing as time, or like, whoa, I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. It's those moments of enlightenment, it's those moments of awakening and awareness that, even though they're never going to last forever, that's part of the surfboard thing, we can still take those and put it in your pocket and remember it and come back to it, right? So lots of blessings coming through, lots of breakthroughs coming through, and lots of opportunities to be able to step into some part of your life, either personally or professionally, in which you feel it's more than just making money. It's actually having fun. It's actually feeling like you're making a difference. It's doing something meaningful or artistic or creative or something like that, right? So go ahead and pinch yourself. You're not dreaming. There's really cool blessings coming through. And I know that you guys have been slegging through it. It's been a long time coming. So celebrate it. Take those wins. Put it in your pocket and save it for later, right? Because you're worth it. And you always have been. It's just that sometimes people don't see it. But you have to hold that in here and go, you know what? Even if that person doesn't see it, I'm freaking awesome. Yeah. So in the second week of October, Mercury in your 11th house, so you're still thinking about how can I live my best life, comes up against a square against Mars in your 8th house. So what that means is that right around October 6th is you're going to have a resurgence of big emotions. And it could be, it could be anything from hormones to circumstances to not getting enough sleep or whatever. Just prepare to potentially have a really frustrating, disappointing, or challenging day that really kind of tests your limits of confidence and emotional regulation, right? But have no fear. By October 8th, it's gone. So it's just going to be a blip, but it's going to be a reminder of what you're releasing. It's going to be a reminder of what you do not want to be swimming in on a regular basis. Observe it, but don't absorb it, and let it pass. And then October 8th, we have a beautiful, beautiful influence of Mercury forming a supportive angle to Jupiter. So it's clicking, it's realizing, wait a minute, I'm free. Wait a minute, this is like the best job or the best opportunity or the best friends I could have ever made in my entire life. So really, from the 6th, a place of despair, to the 8th, a place of bliss. It's going to be a freaking roller coaster in the second week of October. And then to top it off, on October 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde. So when Jupiter goes retrograde for you guys, it's going to be in your 7th house, and it's going to be really, really clear who is in your corner and who is working against your efforts. And not every person working against your efforts is obvious. Sometimes it's covert. Sometimes it's someone you think is a bestie or a partner or a coworker, and you're like talking about the awesome day you had or thing that you achieved or accomplished, and then you look over and they're like, are you done yet? Even that, right? Or you come in wearing your best outfit and somebody's like, really? Sometimes just a look or a tone of voice can take your bliss balloon and go, right? Here's what I want you to pay attention to. Who does that to you? And if anybody who does that to you, especially on a regular basis, if anybody like that is in your circle, in your inner circle, they need to F off like yesterday. Because in the past, if you had self-worth issues, if you had confidence issues, you'd be like, oh, okay, no more. Don't do that anymore. Because people like that are dream busters, and they are not people that you want in your inner circle. So from Jupiter's going to be retrograde from October 9th to, what have we got? February of 2025, February 4th of 2025. We got 5 months to examine our belief systems. We got 5 months to pay attention to whether or not people are in our corner or working against us. And it all has to do with walking a path of authenticity. If you don't feel free to be your sparkly, shiny self around somebody, they're not good for you, right? Obviously, we have to kind of put ourselves in a box at work, but in your personal life, none of that BS is going to fly. And then Pluto goes direct on October 11th. So whatever money issues you've been having by October 11th, a full open pathway to resolution. And then from October 11th to November 19th, Pluto spends its last little bit of time in Capricorn, last time for 250 years, and then it's off and running in Aquarius for good. Well, for the next few years. So yeah, October 11th is like realizing you hit the finish line, on or around there. Realizing that you're finally being valued for being such an awesome person. And the more that you have that positive feedback, the easier it's going to be to let go of toxic, brutal people, right? Awesome. Well, I hope you guys have an amazing 2 weeks. Thank you so much for being here. Feel free to like, share, subscribe if you feel so inclined. And you're always welcome to comment below and share your thoughts. It's great to hear from you guys. So have a wonderful couple weeks, and I will see you next time. Mwah. Bye. Oh, I went long with that one too. Okay. Capricorn Sun and Capricorn Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. Ooh, we got a lot of stuff coming this week, but you know what? It's good stuff. And even though sometimes blessings come in disguised as curses, the energy that's happening right now, it might catalyze some sweeping change, but it won't take you that long to realize that the things that are happening are actually like really, really good. There might be an initial like, whoa, right? But on the other side of it, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I'm really glad that happened. If you haven't checked out the beginning of the video where I give the general overview, I definitely encourage you to do that, because there's a lot that I talk about as far as the quality of time, the shifting energetic focus, and the karmic evolution that we are all currently going through. The collective is experiencing a lot of electricity right now because we're in between two eclipses. A week and a half ago, we had a full moon lunar eclipse that really stirred up the dust. But on Wednesday, October 2nd, we have a new moon solar eclipse that is also aligned with Mercury and Black Moon Lilith. I tell you all about her in the beginning of the video. What's happening is we are all being given an opportunity to hit reset. When it comes to the connections that we have in our lives, the relationships, personal or professional. And the reset is going to help us align with personal and professional freedom, as well as space to be our authentic selves. Now, of course, in the context of work specifically, often you have to wear a mask, you have to, you know what I mean, be someone that you're not because you're playing a role. But in your personal life, you shouldn't have to play a role, right? You should be able to completely freely be yourself. And so any relationships in your life, personal or professional, that do not allow for a high level of authenticity or freedom are going to be the ones that just completely drive you batty right now. The other thing that's happening is that we have a grand trine in water signs. And what that means is that Mars in Cancer, Venus in Scorpio, and Saturn in Pisces complete the water sign trifecta, and working together, it's called a grand trine when three planets align like that. Mars is how we channel our energy, approach life, obstacles, goals, all that stuff. And Venus is how we manifest love, trust, comfort, and abundance. Now, Saturn is how things have always been. And sometimes Saturn can be such a dominating planet that it feels very hard to push past against the status quo, or how things are, or how things have always been. But the really cool thing is that Saturn is reaching the very end of Pisces. And when it finishes its journey in Pisces, early next year, it bumps into Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac. So when it comes to how things have always been, there is a sense of closure, completion, recognition, but also wrapping up and sending out the door. And that is amplified, especially because at the end of this 2-week period, Pluto goes direct. It only spends 1 month in Capricorn for the last time in 250 years, and then it moves on to Aquarius. So for you guys in particular, because Pluto's been in your sign for such a long time, it is about recognizing where and when you are kind of going through the motions in a way that doesn't even have any alignment in your life. So if you keep trying to do things the way that you always have, but your goals are over here and your life is over here, my hand's like way over here, then it's like, well, what the heck? Instead of questioning yourself or questioning your self-worth, it's about, okay, how can I retire these old modes of thinking? How can I let go of these outdated ways of living, and really bring some authenticity, some fire, some sparkles into my life and realign with where I really want to be? Now, in order for you to do that, the astrological influences right now offer heaps of potential when it comes to redirection, but you have to be willing to be redirected. And Capricorn is, represented by the sea goat, but the mountain goat. So there's a sense of like, okay, I'm just going to keep climbing. I'm going to keep climbing. Eventually, I'm going to get to where I want to be. But if you keep climbing and you're still not where you want to be, that is where the earth sign energy of stubborn persistence often works against you. It's great if you're working towards long-term goals, but if your long-term goals aren't happening, that's where you got to embrace some water sign energy. We got this grand water trine happening. Mars in Cancer is in your 7th house. So the action that you want to take has a lot of emotions around it because there's other people involved. Often you want to do something, but you're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings, or you don't want to rock the boat, or what if people aren't okay with the changes that you make? So a lot of your hesitation is coming from the question of, well, how is this going to affect other people? Or what are other people going to think? But that hesitation is actually starting to shift, because at the beginning of the week, September 30th, Mars forms a supportive angle to Saturn to start with. And that is it's activating your 3rd house of conversations and connections. So it's like, okay, for example, I used to do this particular thing for work that brought me a lot of anxiety. And I knew it was time to quit when I literally couldn't get out the door. I ended up having a panic attack sitting on the floor of my kitchen because I was so full of stress. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then the question came up, okay, why do it? Why force myself through the motions if I'm like legit miserable, like tears pouring down my face? So that was the day I quit. And that's the thing. Capricorns are incredible when it comes to long-term goals. I'm a Virgo, so I get that earth sign diligence, right? But if you are making yourself literally miserable, get off that mountain. Stop trying to climb that cliff, right? Redirect yourself. So at the beginning of, like right now, Sunday the 30th is an opportunity for you to go, okay, number one, my feelings matter. And number two, if I'm feeling emotionally dysregulated on a regular basis, I need to talk to somebody about it. I need to network. I need to reach out to my connections and see what can I do to open up potential and possibilities. What can I do to activate some change? What can I do to support my mental and emotional health? Like prioritizing my mental health in my life changed my life. So I would recommend it to anybody. And that's the thing, when you put yourself first, when you prioritize your health, it really does have a ripple effect that makes everything else better. But sometimes what happens first is things get worse, because when you pay attention to your feelings instead of just tuning them out, you realize, oh, fuck, I'm miserable. That's not fun. But then on the other side of it is a solution. First, we have to admit we have a problem, then we can solve the problem, right? And so what happens is, just after that angle happens between Mars and Saturn, and it's like, wait a minute, my feelings matter. I want to change the status quo. I want to change the way that the machine is running in my life. Then right after that, we have a new moon solar eclipse. And guess what? For you guys, it's in your 10th house of career and long-term goals and planning. So there is definitely an indication here that, you know, maybe my personal story resonates with you about having a panic attack before work. One way or another, your theme, Capricorn Sun or Rising, your theme is going to be all about what is it that I'm doing and have been doing for a long time that is potentially destroying my mental health or making me feel emotionally dysregulated. So again, recognize there's a problem. Number two, work to fix the problem. Working to fix the problem, often not very simple at all. But when we have this new moon solar eclipse on Wednesday, October 2nd, it is a magical opportunity to literally change things overnight. Often in our lives, it feels like the opportunities just aren't there. You look for job listings for months, years, it's just not there. And then something absolutely wild and wacky about eclipses is that, like, that's the day you wake up and your dream job is there. That's the day you wake up and an exit door has manifested in your life. Eclipses really do have incredible, powerful potential, but we also have to be willing to take those steps. So if for any reason you're hesitating, now's the time to throw caution to the wind and go, okay, universe, show me the way, the truth, and the light. Help me find the exit door, or help me find, you know what I mean, a better life for myself on whatever level you need it. This grand water trine is activating your 7th and 3rd houses, but also your 11th house. So there are opportunities out there, and it never hurts to pray or invoke magic or work on a manifestation spell. Seriously, what's the worst that could happen? No results. But the best that could happen is life-changing results, right? Give it a whirl. Even if you're not that type of a person, give it a go. Because really this new moon opportunity offers you a chance to validate your emotions, live a life that is more aligned with your authentic energy, and support your personal and professional freedom moving forwards in a way that you don't feel like a prisoner in your own life. Sometimes it means taking a side road or a tangent in order to leapfrog to where you want to be. But if the breadcrumbs are there, just follow the breadcrumbs and trust that your spirit guides are getting you to where you want to be. One step at a time, it all eventually comes together. And then on October 4th, Venus forms that final corner of the water sign trifecta, angling with Saturn from the 3rd house. So yeah, networking, crowdsourcing, talk about what you're dealing with, talk about what you're trying to manifest. And I do have a video on my YouTube channel called The Ultimate Manifestation Technique, where I teach you how to write a magical manifestation wish list. The idea is getting really clear about what it is that you want, and then invoking that change, invoking that into your life, right? And then moving on to the 2nd week of October, it is your 10th house that is being activated for the most part by this planetary party in Libra. Now, sometimes the opinions and perspectives of others will get in the way. So do be careful who you consult for advice. And do keep in mind that, you know, if you're an employee and you're talking to your boss about wanting to do better, your boss might not necessarily be supportive, because then they're going to lose a star employee. So if somebody tries to hold you back from making change, don't stop what you're doing. Ask yourself, why would they do that? Because it's only people who have something to gain from you being stagnant. They're going to tell you, don't grow, don't reach for the stars, don't be free, right? Because they need you to stay there. They're getting something out of you. But I guarantee you, anyone who loves you, anyone who sees the best in you and supports you is going to be like, dude, go for it. Live your best life, make those changes, hex that X, whatever it takes, right? Because the people who love you want to see you succeed. And if anybody in your life doesn't want to see you succeed, they're an enemy. They are not a friend. Does that make sense? Bingo. Okay. And then to close things off, October 9th, Jupiter goes retrograde. This is where I'm talking about a side quest or a tangent. The pathway to your success may or may not be very straightforward, because when Jupiter goes retrograde on October 9th, it's in your 6th house. So there's something about your daily routines and aspects of planning that are gonna feel like they're going backwards for a little bit before they go forwards. Jupiter is going to be retrograde. Jupiter is associated with freedom, expanding your horizons, shooting for the stars. Jupiter is going to be retrograde from October 9th to February 4th of next year. Be prepared to be in a holding pattern for a little bit, but don't stop dreaming. Don't stop planning. It's all about following the breadcrumbs. It's all about waiting for the right opportunity. But as long as you spend that Jupiter retrograde freeing yourself in here, then when Jupiter goes direct, boom, nothing but open doors and smooth sailing ahead. So make sure that you free yourself in here and in here first, and then a ripple effect will happen in your outer situation. And then when Pluto goes direct on October 11th, it's an opportunity for you to reclaim your power, release any shadow work that you've been working on, and move forwards with unconditional love for yourself. Mwah! Thank you for being here. I'm wishing you guys all the very best. Invoke some magic. Believe in yourself. You are not meant to suffer. You are meant to thrive. All right? Feel free to like and subscribe, share if you feel so inclined, and you are always welcome to comment below if you want to share your thoughts or experiences. Thanks again for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye. Okay. Yeah. Aquarius Sun and Aquarius Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There's a lot to talk about this week, and Pluto is going direct on October 11th, which means it's going to be jumping into your sign in mid-November. So prepare to be empowered, prepare to claim your power, but also prepare to experience a little bit of friction with the people around you, because when Pluto moves into your sign, it adds an energy of people either loving you or hating you. Here's why I'm giving you this heads up, is because you cannot anchor your value or your self-worth on what other people think. It's very important to cultivate that within yourself, so that if down the road people seem to be triggered by you, don't take it personally. Don't internalize it and be like, oh, there's something wrong with me. I mean, there might be something in your tooth, right? I'm just kidding. But basically, yeah, what we have is, when does Pluto go back into Aquarius? November 19th. So from now until November 19th, you are strongly encouraged to establish a healthy, solid foundation of self-love, humble awareness, but also start getting in the routine of making choices that align with your values, whether or not anybody else validates it. We have a grand water trine happening, and in the middle of this water alignment, we have a new moon solar eclipse happening. So I'm going to walk you through it. Right now, today is September 30th, and right now Saturn and Mars are having a little party, and Mars is in Cancer, Saturn's in Pisces. Saturn in Pisces is in your second house, so there's been a little bit of heaviness and seriousness around lack of financial flow. And what you're switching into is focusing less on profit, although we all love profit, but you are learning to prioritize spiritual alignment, walking your highest path, and feeling fulfilled. The money comes after, right? If we pursue only money, we realize down the road that we are empty inside. But if we pursue filling our hearts and filling our spirits, then the money comes, and when it comes, we're living our best lives. But it's sometimes a little bit slower to come, because you're not focused on pulling profit, you're focused on being a good person and living your best life. Counterintuitive, but it will definitely work in your favor. You just have to have patience to see it through. And with Mars in your 6th house, that's the sticky part right now. Mars is in Cancer, which means that the action we take, the energy we approach our lives with, the energy that we tackle challenges and obstacles with, is kind of drowning in really big emotions right now. Mars does not do well in Cancer. Mars wants to be a laser beam and hit the superhighway, hit the Autobahn, right? 200 miles an hour, kilometers an hour. And what happens is when Mars is in Cancer, as it's going to be for the next few months, it has a sense of feeling drowning. That you try and take a few steps forwards, but your emotions become dysregulated and you lose track of what it was that you're doing, and your goals seem further away. And so when we experience that makes me think of dreaming, you know, like when you try and run in a dream and it feels like your feet are made of cement and you're like, you know, and you can't run. That's Mars in Cancer. So if it feels like that's your life right now, you're definitely not alone. And because Mars is in Cancer in your 6th house with Saturn and Pisces in your 2nd house, odds are you're struggling for money. And odds are there's something about your financial world that feels like a real pinch and a real squeeze, to the point that your emotions might be getting the best of you. I want to validate, number one, you're not alone. Number two, this is a collective experience right now. And number three, it will definitely get better. But all the emotions that are coming up for you are important information, because the emotions that are coming up are giving you a taste of, where are my demons? Where's my shadow? Because when we struggle for money, that's when our insecurities come up. Well, maybe I suck. Maybe I'm not worth it. Right? When we struggle for friends, when we feel alone, when we don't have a romantic partner, often those are the times when we go, nobody's ever going to love me, right? And it's not true, but our brains have a way of vacillating between bliss and despair. And when the astrological signatures, like they are right now, have been in the depths of muck for a while, I don't blame you, right? Everybody's going through some aspect of despair right now. And for you guys, it is very specifically linked to money, income, and concepts of self-worth. But have no fear, like I said, it will get better. The new moon solar eclipse happening on Wednesday, October 2nd, activates your 9th house of freedom, possibilities, expansion, and belief systems. So any ways in which you have had your shadow or your demons shown to you, Wednesday's eclipse offers you an opportunity to say, see you later, bye. I'm not playing into that. Don't be your worst enemy. Don't feed into those. And if your emotions come bubbling up in such a way that you feel like you're drowning, practice observing, not absorbing. If we practice being the observer, which is a technique we learn in meditation, then you can go, oh, wow, I'm noticing some really big feelings. I'm noticing a lot of self-deprecating and self-destructive thoughts right now. And then watch it, like listen to it and watch it as if it's passing on a screen, or as if you're watching it happen outside of you. And in that separation, you can see, oh, I remember I feel this way because somebody used to say that to me. Or, you know what I mean? So if you can figure out the roots of where that came from, then you can pluck those roots and chuck it in the fuck it bucket, right? So any ways in which you can kind of weed the garden of your mind is going to allow you to have fertile land for new growth. And this new moon solar eclipse on October 2nd offers us all the opportunity to plant new seeds, new beginnings. And because it's aligned with the south node of past karma, repeating patterns, unhealthy behaviors, we are all encouraged to recognize the ways in which we are repeating patterns by participating in them and therefore perpetuating them. And once we see it, we can't unsee it. And as long as you practice that awareness, it's easier and easier to let go of that kind of stuff, right? Don't aim for perfection, aim for balance, aim for self-love. Some days you're gonna rock at it and some days you're gonna drown. That's okay. It all comes out in the wash. And so it is an opportunity to give yourself the gift of freedom. If anybody in your circle is perpetuating those negative thoughts, they need to go like yesterday. And if it really just comes down to your own headspace, then therapy, meditation, there's lots of different ways to approach it. But if you take it on as your most important priority to make sure that your headspace is a safe space, your life will literally change for the better. It's going to be so much better. And yeah, the completion of the water sign trifecta happens on October 4th when Venus in Scorpio completes that final corner, connecting with Saturn. Venus in Scorpio activates your 10th house and opens up possibilities of new professional connections, either a new job, new career, new equity, new stability, or a new path moving forwards. So whatever you can do intentionally, magically, physically, emotionally, mentally, on or around the eclipse to consciously, like hold that negativity, whatever you're drowning in, hold it here and be like, I am done. And do a ritual, do a song, do a dance, let it go. Because what comes right after it is amazingly powerful, magical potential to plant new seeds, have new beautiful things grow in your metaphorical garden, and really see yourself and see your life in a new way. So Yeah, in whatever way feels appropriate to you, I definitely encourage you to create some sort of a ritual to let go and be ready for receiving the new, because all of a sudden everything starts to click into place. And then what happens October 9th is Jupiter goes retrograde. And so Jupiter goes right. I want to back up a step. October 8th, Mercury forms a really supportive angle to Jupiter. And that means that we have expansive thinking. That means we start to see the silver lining on the clouds. We start to see possibilities. We start to see potential. We start to see the best in ourselves. Sometimes it comes because of new philosophies. Sometimes it becomes because of a kind word from a stranger or a conversation from someone we love. But basically, that alignment activates a part of yourself that is associated with your inner child: joy, bliss, creativity, having fun. So again, if part of what you're struggling with is a wounded inner child, then healing your inner child is literally going to change your life. Also, if you've just been drowning in responsibilities and not having any fun, then intentionally and purposely creating space for fun and games and joy in your life, again, is going to have that ripple effect. So embracing laughter, embracing play, all of that good stuff, because then what happens is Jupiter goes retrograde on October 9th. And when it does, it's going to spend 5 months in your 5th house. The 5th house is joy, play, inner child, creativity. And Jupiter represents belief systems. We cannot activate possibilities. We cannot live up to our potential if we have toxic belief systems happening up here, because we will always get in our own way, right? But the more you can be aware of what is happening up here, whether it is helping or hurting, and then taking ownership over that, consciously working to correct that, consciously being gentle with yourself and going, oh, poor self, I can't believe you think that of you. You know what I mean? And then look at yourself in the mirror and say awesome, beautiful things to yourself. It may feel goofy, but nobody's watching, whatever. Because Jupiter going retrograde for 5 months in your 5th house is an opportunity to do like a crash course in healing your inner child, reconnecting with bliss and joy. And then when it comes out of it, holy smokes, next spring is full of new beginnings. Like, whoa, next spring is going to be wild. I'll get into that in my next video. And then October 11th, Pluto goes direct in your 12th house, again releasing any subconscious fears, shadows, or demons that were swimming around in there for a while. And then Pluto only spends 1 month in your 12th house before moving into Aquarius. So big changes. This is the end. This is the end of what you were drowning with, the shadow work, the self-sabotage, or the sabotage from people around you, all the ways in which you felt like you were drowning or lost, or like, where are you, God? Like all of that, right? It all wraps up. So there's going to be huge, huge, huge noticeable progress by the middle of this month. And then by the beginning of next year, you're going to feel like a completely different person. So do the work, love yourself, laugh as much as possible, and this too shall pass. Thank you so much for being here. Mwah! I wish you guys all the very best. I hope you liked your horoscopes. Feel free to like and share and subscribe, and comment below if you have anything you want to share. Your thoughts are always welcome. Have a great day. I'll see you next time. Pisces Sun and Pisces Rising, welcome to your horoscopes. There is so much going on, and because you're a water sign, you Scorpios and Cancers are definitely going to get a really beautiful boost, because this week we have a grand trine happening, completing a trifecta of 3 water signs. So Saturn is in your sign in Pisces, Venus is in Scorpio, and Mars is in Cancer. So all 3 in water signs, and when they line up perfectly, that becomes a grand trine. And a grand trine smooths things out. It offers an open pathway, or like a super highway, to change and transformation if we are willing to embrace the energies of those 3 planets in the element that they're in. Now, water, as I'm sure you're familiar, is all about emotions, intuition, but also going with the flow. And as a Pisces, you guys, Pisces rising or Pisces sun, you guys have your own unique flow. Some other people might perceive you as unique and quirky, and other people perceive you as wise and intuitive. But definitely you have a very unique way of living your lives and channeling your energies in this lifetime. And what's really cool is that with Saturn in your sign, you are going through this process of kind of recalibrating who you are in physical form, who you are in this third dimension, and hoping, you know, kind of connecting the dots between being a spiritual being, having a physical experience. Sometimes the two concepts feel so divided, but you've been finding a way to weave them together in a really beautiful way. A lot of it has had to do with kind of retreating, taking space, limiting who you connect with. But in doing so, you've been able to purify your own energetic expression without interference or obstacles or anything like that from other people. And then when you come out of this period of resetting your own energy, what comes out of it is a new, authentic, reborn version of you. Speaking of authenticity, we have a new moon solar eclipse this week, and it's not just the moon and the sun in Libra, it's also Mercury and Black Moon Lilith. And if you haven't caught it already, I strongly encourage you to check out the general overview in the beginning of my video, because I tell you all about the quality of time, including a little story about Lilith and who she is. But long story short, she's all about encouraging us, all of us, to live a life in which we are able to be free. And freedom takes a lot of different forms. It's about being able to move freely, think freely, express yourself freely, but also to be your authentic self. And that means not fitting into a box, not being controlled by anybody else, but within respectful frames, of course, being able to move about in whatever way you choose, right? And so we start this week right now. Mars is forming a supportive angle to Saturn in your sign. With Mars in Cancer, it means that the action we're taking is from a heart space. It's from a big emotional place. But the choices we're making, the change we're making, the challenges we're taking on, and the direction that we're going in, the idea is that we are holding space for the deepest emotions. Sometimes deep emotions cause us to kind of drown or get distracted, but tuning into our hearts and using our emotions as a compass tells us either this feels good or this does not feel good. And to channel Marie Kondo, it's important to ask, does this bring me joy? If not, I'm going to chuck it in the fuck it bucket. Done. Right? And of course, it would be nice if life was that simple, but it rarely is. The idea is, though, that with Mars in your 5th house, you are much more inclined to want to be at home in your own cozy space, but maybe hanging out with your kids or nurturing your own inner child by being creative, playful, singing, dancing. And it's hard to dance and sing and be silly if you have haters around, right? So absolutely, you know, pull those curtains or limit who you interact with, because this is sacred. This is precious. This is you coming back to joy. This is you coming back to bliss. This is you reestablishing exactly who you are. And that changes and evolves over time, like continuously. You're never going to be the exact same person all the time. And that's the other thing. If you've been seeking a form of identity, I tell you, every single day that identity is going to change. So locking in doesn't really suit you because that's not your vibe. And if you're trying to lock into something, ask yourself, am I doing this to benefit other people? Or am I doing this because it's genuinely going to make my life better? Because with Mars in Cancer over the next few months, we are all encouraged to ask, in whose name am I making these changes? Am I doing this because it helps me feel emotionally regulated? Or am I doing this because it makes other people feel better? We have to choose self-preservation. And the new moon solar eclipse happening on Wednesday is activating your 8th house of karma, life, death, rebirth, connection to the spirit realm, and repeating patterns. So there's an opportunity on a spiritual and metaphysical level for you to release karma and allow yourself to move forwards with less definition, and more fluidity. Outside of the metaphysical implications of this activation on Wednesday, the other part of it is money. The 8th house is associated with debt and shared resources. Because the eclipse is happening in Libra, which is one-on-one relationships, for some of you, this may have a direct implication around cutting ties with someone that you share debt or responsibility with. It could be a time of receiving an inheritance, or it could be a time of getting your own bank account and own financial assets sorted out because you are leaving a partnership. It could be about releasing debt because you've either written it off or you've paid it off. But basically, all across the board, the idea is breaking the chains that bind us, and in some way or another, being able to move forwards with more freedom. So for some people, it's going to be energetic freedom. For some other people, it's going to be financial freedom. And sometimes we don't even know where it's going to come from. And we're praying and we're like, I need help. I need to pay this off. I can't be living with this debt any longer. And if you're open to ideas, if you're open to creative solutions, this is an opportunity for you to really voice that need and see what comes back. See what kind of, I want to say spaghetti sticks to the wall, right? Sometimes we have to throw a lot of ideas out there and just see what sticks, right? The worst thing you could possibly do is be frozen and not do anything. The best thing you can possibly do is brainstorm, talk to people, talk to a financial advisor, talk to a therapist, whatever it is that you're struggling with. Bring movement, bring momentum, and see what you can do to catalyze a new beginning. See what you can do to make sure that on a metaphorical level, the garden in which you're trying to plant seeds, make sure it's fertile ground, right? Make sure that you're willing to water those seeds and look after these ideas day after day, right? If we plant a seed and forget about it, it's not going to grow. And then to complete the trifecta just after the eclipse, Venus joins Saturn, and Venus is in your 9th house. So there's an opportunity for new approaches, new beginnings, refinancing if you're dealing with debt, recalibrating your direction if you're struggling in a partnership, couples therapy, learning about how to cooperate, learning about how to communicate in a healthier way. If it's metaphysical and spiritual, then you could be learning a new philosophy. You could be taking classes. You could be strengthening your intuition. I teach tarot, by the way, and I teach psychic development as well. You can visit my website for more details. But basically, that's exactly it, that you've reached the end with a particular way of living, and what's coming up, there is no space for those old patterns. It's just not feasible. Either literally it can't go anymore, or metaphysically it's just not working anymore. So don't be a stick in the mud, go with the flow, because the magic is happening if you go with the flow. And then moving into the second week of October, basically what we're looking at is the planetary party in Libra right now is activating your 8th house. So by far, your thoughts, your feelings, your focus right now is around 8th house concepts. So like I said, that could be debt, it could be shared resources, life, death, rebirth, karma, connection to spirit, one of those. I know it's kind of a broad description, but the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio. And so it is some really profound, deep feelings, intense experiences, but making peace with it, right? So even if big stuff happens, on the other side of it is going to be peace, is going to be resolution. So go with the flow. Don't judge a book by the cover, because sometimes blessings come in disguised as curses, right? So just let it play out. And then what happens is Jupiter goes retrograde. So right before Jupiter goes retrograde, Mercury does a little high five with Jupiter. And Mercury's in your 8th house, but Jupiter's in your 4th house of emotional safety. And so with Jupiter being in your 4th house of emotional safety, the idea is, in order to expand, in order to grow, in order to thrive, I have to have a solid foundation of emotional health. And then what happens is, as soon as we have that realization about how our emotional health or our family roots have something to do with the current situation we're in, all of a sudden, as soon as we realize that, Jupiter goes retrograde. Now, Jupiter is going to be retrograde for 5 months. It doesn't come out of retrograde until the beginning of February next year, which means we have 5 months to give ourselves the gift of freedom. Because Jupiter is associated with freedom and expansion and growth and learning new things, when it goes retrograde, it just means I need to put all that effort into me. I need to figure out what's happening here. I need to heal what's happening here. And then when I do so, and Jupiter goes direct in February of next year, that's when the ripple effect happens in our external lives, and boom, 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 everything clicks into place. But we will not experience external change if we are still the same in here and in here. You see? So we have to go inwards before we can go outwards, but that's okay. Pluto goes direct on October 11th, and for you guys, it's your 11th house. So you may find yourself more inclined to return. If you've been taking a hiatus from social media, then around the middle of October, you might feel inclined to reactivate your account. Or if you've just been kind of hiding in your own space and doing your own thing, around the middle of October, you're going to feel more inclined to hang out with friends, more inclined to reach out, take a class, you know what I mean, go traveling or something like that, but basically to come out of your shell. And so there's a lot of big changes happening. By and large, you're going to feel like it is the right time. Nobody's going to force you to do anything, but it is going to be a natural evolution of the process that you've been in for a while. And you're going to be ready. You're going to be ready for the sun to come out. You're going to be ready for change to happen. So give yourself the gift of unlocking this, and then everything out here will make sense. I hope you enjoyed your horoscopes. Thank you so much for being here. Feel free to like and share and comment if you feel so inclined. I'm always super curious what people think, so feel free to share your thoughts below if you want. And share the video if you know somebody else who would like it. I hope you guys have a magical time and a powerfully potent new beginning eclipse. Mwah! And I will see you next time. Bye.